learn with me what the hell is going on. Someone needs to get this message to the defense. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Have to use brain power. Let me help out Dr. Russell here.
Many people suffer from what's called an acute grief reaction.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
Buchanan was so defensive and unable to throw Proctor under the bus because he loved him.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Then we add what we know about Michael Proctor. This guy is just the world's biggest. On every level that a person could be, between incompetence and stupidity, Michael Proctor wins the award for a combination of both. They killed him. Who are all the powers that be? Look at the smile on his face. That's what happened. That's what happened. So she doesn't actually want them to get here quickly, and that's the reason why she doesn't say there's an officer down. Meet the Bar Association of Norfolk County's Person of the Year.
I routinely do when I work with attorneys, okay? I prepare this on my own.
Oh my God. See? You see it? It is undeniable.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Holy you guys. Build some way to feed her ego. So if you have absolutely nothing to do with the death of John OKeefe, why start crying on the stand? Hank Brennan deserves an award for being the most unlikable human being that the world has ever seen. Consciousness of guilt. I would really like somebody to do the right thing in this case.
Sergeant Barrows, is this the condition of the right rear taillight?
Absolutely not.
At no point do you wake up or go outside and say to somebody, why are you here? What if there was a gunman? Because you don't know. How do I know? There's 40 cops in front of my very small front yard. That's the bedroom window. Here's Sonny. Hey, hi, everybody. There's my son. Hello. Sonny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I wasn't going to record a video today, but then I stumbled upon this. Peter met with Adam Lally for lunch. During this lunch, Adam Lally told Peter that he knows the poor person. Oh, my God. This is not good.
Now you're starting to see the blurs easier.
You see those two blurs?
Are moving around.
She absolutely knows it would not be Karen Reed's defense team that she'd have to worry about. It would be the defense who she lied to.
That's the defendant not guilty or guilty?
A juror explaining why she voted to acquit Karen Reed of that second-degree murder charge for allegedly ramming her SUV into John OKeefe during a blizzard in 2022.
A collision did not occur. I can't assess the motive to this sloppy police investigation.
And the toughest moment for her? Hearing the derogatory text messages about Reed sent by lead homicide investigator Michael Proctor just hours after he got the case.
Whatever timestamp was on that deleted wall file is the time that she did that search. And she deleted it. Let's make sure and pin it on this girl who I hope kills herself. That's a class act. You are a class act, Michael Proctor. Definitely someone should give you a gun and a badge. 100% sure that Karen did not do this.
Number one is I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters who have supported me and my team financially and, more importantly, emotionally for almost 4 years. And the second thing I want to say is no one has fought harder for justice for John OKeefe than I have.
How dare they?
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Benigno. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a sixth-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor, and I am here breaking down the Justice for John OKeefe case. Welcome, everybody. I am sorry about having to move again from Wednesday to Friday, but this is my daughter's last week of school. So, and then she's off to camp for a little bit. So,
Objection.
you know,
Sustained.
had to hang in there with me. Sorry, I don't know what that was. So I appreciate that. And I was getting emotional watching that open, right? Just like thinking back to what was a little over a week ago, I guess now. Seems like could have been lifetimes ago, right? Really feels like a long time ago now. But yeah, what a moment, right? What a victory. Really, what a victory. And certainly one that was well earned on the part of the defense team. And of course, we've heard quite a bit from the defense team. We've seen Alessi and Yannetti doing their little tour, right, all over YouTube. And then we've heard a bit. We heard on Howie Carr from Alan Jackson. And I think it's really interesting. I have to tell you guys, I think it's really interesting how differently those guys, right, Yannetti and Alessi, and kind of the way that they're handling the discussion about the case, and then kind of where Alan Jackson is at, right? And, you know, I love these people. They're all my heroes. So I am not saying anything bad about them at all. I want to be clear. I just think it's fascinating that, right, we have these very, like, completely polar opposite kind of ways of approaching the post-verdict experience, right, out in the world. You have Alan Jackson, who is pissed, right? Like, he's pissed. And I do not blame him, because if I was Alan Jackson, I would be pissed too. Yeah, I'd be pissed too. And it's funny, you know, I heard Yannetti on one of the shows this week saying something to the effect about the judge, about Bev, the so-called judge. You know, well, we won. And so it's like, things just kind of roll off your back and it's not as bad now, you know? But then we sort of have Alan Jackson, who just said all the things that I've been thinking for the last, I don't know how long, right? Like, yeah, this was nuts. And it's one thing to have, you know, to be up against another prosecutor. It's another thing to be up against a judge, right? Who, you know, is supposed to be calling balls and strikes. And I know that at some point I was using baseball references because I am a baseball fan. And, you know, and that is right. I mean, they're the umpire. They're supposed to be calling balls and strikes, not putting their hand on the scale to tip the scale one way or the other. And like you said, like Jackson says, you know, so obviously they were working overtime to try to keep evidence away from the jury. It's like, it's one thing when it's like, all right, let's lay it all out and then let the jury make an educated choice. It's another thing when you're keeping things actively from the jury because you want one side to win over the other. Oh my God. You know, yeah. So you can feel that frustration. And then in just a minute, we're going to take a look at the follow-up to that, which was Hank Brennan's reaction to the verdict, and then Alan Jackson reacting to Hank Brennan. So we're going to take a look at that. And so there's kind of that whole thing going on. And then, of course, you know, there's the reaction from the McAlberts. There's Michael Proctor, and I haven't seen, and maybe some of you have, I have not seen yet the full interview with Proctor. I've only seen clips, so I don't know if that's even been released yet. I'm sure it's on its way soon. I know they're kind of teasing it the last I saw. You know, fine, whatever, I get it. But yeah, you know, obviously Michael Proctor, the one thing I did hear was Proctor saying that he doesn't think he would do anything differently except for maybe, I don't know, like something about like searching another vehicle or two. I mean, something essentially to the effect of, I would just go through the motions. Okay, great. Well, that makes us all feel better. And yes, you should definitely get your job back now. It's like nobody's learned anything from this little charade. And then he's talking about how, well, most people really support us in Canton. Yes, most people support us. And it's really the silent majority that supports us. Okay. Right. Okay. I mean, you got to tell yourself something to sleep at night, but yeah, it never ends. So, and then what I have been doing is so this is like really fun for me. I have to tell you, as much as I don't want to say enjoyed the trial, but enjoyed the trial to the best that you can. Obviously, I wish there was no Karen Read trial, but because there's so much that was coming out like day after day, and so much information and so much content. And so now I'm kind of loving this, because the truth is there is so much content to go through. So for example, I've got like 3 different things in the works all at once. I'm going back and I'm trying to essentially create a through line so that we can follow the taillight and when it probably, exactly changed hands and who did what. So we can look at that. And then have been working on going through all the footage from the first trial. And I will tell you, it is so interesting to me because I watched it. I was there. I saw it in real time, but I think I just did not know what I was looking at, right? Like I didn't know as much as I know now. So now when I go back and I watch like Matt McCabe testify, it's a completely different world. So I've been going back, and man, some of this testimony, like we're going to look at some of it tonight, because it's nuts. It's nuts, you guys. Like, I don't know how I missed it the first time, or I saw it and I didn't know what I was looking at, right? Because again, like I didn't know enough. I really came into the Karen Read case right at the beginning of the first trial. So I must have just been kind of like learning as I was going during the first batch of witnesses. So I didn't really know what I was looking at. And now when I'm listening to these testimonies, it's like, I can't even believe that some of this happened, and I don't know how I missed it. So definitely got to go back through all of that. And then, of course, we have the jurors who've been doing all this talking. Very interesting, right? Like very interesting. I'm not sure what your guys' take on this is, but it seems to me that the jurors they were really with the defense. Like they got it, right? They really, it's like exactly what the defense was hoping that a juror or jury would see with the way they presented their case. That's exactly what the jurors saw. And if I saw this correctly, I think I heard this maybe from Turtle Boy. I don't remember exactly who I heard this from, but that all 18 jurors were going to vote for basically a full acquittal, except for the DUI, or the OUI. So that is pretty amazing. And yeah, so it's awesome to see the jurors come out. I wish they weren't getting so horribly attacked by the trolls. I mean, I think that's horrible. But okay, it is what it is. Not terribly surprising. And I also will say one more thing. I did that video. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but I did that video on John Jackson and how he was perceiving what the jury was saying. Well, they weren't 100%, and, they didn't even understand what reasonable doubt meant, and we never had a chance. And my thinking with some of that was, well, yeah, you never had a chance because there wasn't evidence, and there wasn't evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. And so this group of people didn't feel okay with themselves. We're not going to be okay if they couldn't sleep at night because they were unsure whether they should have just, sent a woman to jail for the rest of her life, right? So clearly the jury did this exactly correctly from what I could tell. The way that they are describing their approach, it just seemed like they were just an in sync group, a kind group of people, an open group of people, even people who started out really thinking she probably did do it, but who remained open, went through the evidence. Nobody seemed to come in completely closed minded. Everybody was like, all right, let's see what everybody else thinks. And they seemed like they followed the rules, right? I mean, from what I can tell, again, we obviously haven't heard in depth from everybody, but to me, it seems like they did exactly what you would want a jury to do. And hello, of course they didn't, there wasn't enough evidence because there wasn't enough evidence. I mean, that's the point. That's the problem, right? And by the way, I love that the foreman has come out and said the feds need to do an investigation. Like, how great is that, right? That is pretty awesome. And I know that we've had Brennan and some other people say that the investigation, that the federal investigation is closed, is done. I don't know, right? I don't know. I mean, of course, I don't want to believe that. I have no reason to think that it's not true, but I also have no reason to think it is true. So who the hell knows? It does seem to me, though, that this would be the kind of case that the feds would hate because it is like a lot of circumstantial evidence, unless they know something we don't, which of course is possible, right? So I am very curious, what are you guys consuming in this week since the trial? What do you think? Anything in particular stand out in terms of what people are saying? What are you guys seeing? What are you thinking? Madam August Butterfly. To me, it sounds like Jen McCabe is whispering to the 911 dispatch. Yeah, thanks for supporting the truth. Tell your sister we said hello. Well, you'll be able to tell her yourself. And thank you so much for your support. I think she's going to be joining us in just a little bit. I told her that I wanted to review some testimony. And so I think she's going to hop on to do that with us. So the Jen McCabe 911 call, it upsets me now, actually, because I cannot believe that I never took the time. I mean, how many Dateline episodes have I watched, right? I mean, 1,000, however many there are, right? How many of them have I seen? And not just Dateline, all of them, right? Like 2020, Nightline. I mean, you name it. What's her name? The Paula Zahn. I mean, all of them. And how many of those shows, probably at least half, include a 911 call where we're going back and listening for consciousness of guilt evidence. And I've never thought to stop and really listen. Like, of course, I listened like we all did just to the first part. Like, there's a man down in the snow. Okay. That was as far as I got. And it never occurred to me to just sit and really listen. And this is even crazier, even the day that I ended up doing an analysis of that 911 call, it was because I was trying to get a clip for some other reason. And then I started listening and I was like, oh my God, like this is nuts. That Jen McCabe 911 call. Twice she insists that he's dead, has never gone near the body. She's immediately assigned the job of the 911 call. And of course, in addition to not going in the house, like not doing anything that any normal human being would do if they really didn't know he was dead or was already there. But then when you listen to this call and you analyze it line by line, it is insane. It's insane. And Jen McCabe is like the worst liar the world has ever seen. She's just horrific at it. And something that I've been studying this for the last year. I started studying it at the end of last summer, but then in the last 3 months, really, really a lot more, because I don't do enough studying. So I needed to add something else to my plate. But I've been studying, right, deception detection, and every single rule of deception detection, Jen McCabe, she's almost like if you like, how sometimes people will come into a class and they'll like be your test subject, right? She is like such a textbook like liar. It's just every line in deception detection, you'll get like a little example and then you'll watch like 10 minutes of Jen McCabe's testimony. You're like, oh, there's that thing they were talking about like 3 minutes ago. It's wild. She's the worst liar the world has ever seen. And it got worse. Everybody thought with the second time around that like, because she had changed her presentation to be softer, that somehow like meant that she seemed less deceptive. No. No, not at all. Nope, not less deceptive. Absolutely not. Just as deceptive as ever. Maybe she just was like tan and somebody gave her a Valium. That's the difference. But other than those two things, she's the worst liar. She's just terrible at it. It's wild. And the thing about the second trial is, think about it now, she's gone through it once and she's probably had like at least a year to study to get her lying down perfectly. And she was still horrible at it. So it's bad. It's so bad, right? These people, man, it's brutal. It's so bad. Oh my God, it's so bad. Oh, AMAC Talking Smack sends $5 and says, been loving your videos. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. You have connected so many dots for me. Well, you are welcome. And thank you so much for your support. It's so much fun. I mean, you know, what's better than just doing this all the time, right? It's great. It's trying to figure out, you know, what happened to this man, as much as I would like to just have that be done with and us know and the right people be in jail for it. Until that happens, you know, it feels like it's really on us to keep screaming and shouting. And it kills me. It kills me. One of the things that really, I don't want to say pisses me off, because I get it also, but upsets me about listening to the O'Keefe camp and like the friends and family of John talk about Karen Reed supporters and the people in pink. You know, like the narrative is that we've all forgotten about John O'Keefe. And I think it's just because they're, I don't know, maybe not like the sharpest. I'm not exactly sure how I would frame that exactly, but it's like they just don't get it, that so much of the reason why Karen Reed has these supporters is because all of us want to see justice for John O'Keefe. All of us recognize this was a wonderful human being with a beautiful heart and a kind soul, and who did something that most people would not have done in taking in his sister's children in a horrible situation. Like, we all got it, right? And so much so that people who were like myself, who was never motivated to take up a cause ever in my life, decided to do that, right? So somehow it escapes them that would be an enormous part of the incentive, right? So that upsets me. It pisses me off when I hear that, because it's crazy. It's so stupid. So I feel like, okay, so if we had just like picked up two colors, if I had picked up like pink and like had a blue wristband on, then it would somehow register for these people. Okay, I forgot I needed blue earrings. If I had blue earrings, then, you know, the O'Keefe family would have been able to see that, like, oh, two things can be true at once. I can support Karen Reed and John O'Keefe. Oh, right. Oh my God, these people. Sometimes it's just insane. It really, really is. Thomas Futch sends $10 and says, thank you for reporting of Karen Reed. Love your channel. Well, thank you for your support. Yeah, I'm just here like doing what I would be doing anyway, and including you guys in it. That's really the truth. This is what I would be doing. I would be sitting, you know, in whatever small amount of free time I have. I would be sitting and I'd be watching testimony, and I would be analyzing it to try to figure out what the hell happened, who's lying, why they're lying, how they're lying, you know. And one of the recent things, and you guys, I am going to need your help. I know that you all have information on this, have insight on this. And so we're going to do this together. I've gotten some great emails recently. So thank you to all of you who've emailed me on these things. I'll tell you, I had somebody helping me via email with the key cycles. And I was so grateful for that, because I was losing my mind over the key cycles, like really losing my mind. I could not understand why we were continually talking about a key cycle that, you know, a key cycle that, because of Trooper Paul, everything got very screwed up with the key cycles, which makes sense. But the way that it was presented in the first trial made it very hard to understand how we could even be talking about this key cycle. You know, it was at 1062 in the second trial. And so people, all of you helped, you know, chipped in to help me figure it out. And I really appreciate that, because it was driving me nuts. And so now I need you guys for this new thing that I am kind of, I don't want to say obsessed with, but really want to figure out now. And I'm going to give you the suggestion that somebody gave me, and I want to hear your opinion on this because I don't know. I mean, I think it made sense, and I'm trying to figure out exactly why this would be. And that's part of the reason why we're going to watch the testimony that we're going to watch today. So here's the question. Ms. Holmes 66 sends $5 and says, you have unique gifts, and I thank you for unraveling the Karen Reed case and hope you do the same for Turtle Boy. Well, thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you so much. Yeah, I mean, part of my incentive now is to try to keep the pressure on because I see what they're doing to Turtle Boy. Oh my God, Brian Tully is so evil. He really is. He's a scary dude, Brian Tully. And to me, he's like, he is all in on trying to destroy Turtle Boy. And of course, all these people are. And I can't help but think that was a significant part of the motivation behind this recent ABC McAlbert tour. You know, I think maybe I'm sure they were given some money to do it too. But, you know, the fact that they were talking about, oh, we're just witnesses and we've been harassed. To me, that felt an awful lot like them trying to get ahead of recognizing the Turtle Boy stuff is about to, you know, come to the surface because all of us, of course, are going to want to turn our attention to that. And they know it. And they want to see him fry, right? They blame him for all of this, which is absurd. I mean, thank God for Turtle Boy, but it's insane to think this is his fault, right? It's not his fault. He's just the person who, you know, drew attention to something that needed the attention, right? Thank God. So, but from their view, it makes a lot of sense. So hopefully we can, you know, make sure to keep some pressure on these people because they're going to go after him for sure. Absolutely. I have no doubt. All right. So let me paint this for you and I want to hear what you guys think. So, all right. Obviously, when we go back, so we're going back now to January 29th, 2022. Well, I guess we'll starting at midnight. So yeah, January 29th. Everyone's coming back to 34 Fairview from the waterfall. And I've always known that Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were lying about the Jeep, about Brian Higgins' Jeep. But I couldn't figure out why. Like, why is there so much lying around this stupid Jeep and the plow, this whole nonsense about Brian Higgins dropping the plow and pretending to, like, as a joke, to plow the driveway, even though there was absolutely no snowfall at that time. So, I mean, it's just absurd. Clearly, they are lying. So the question is, well, why? Now we also know, I mean, definitively, and I think we've known this for a long time, but I don't think I registered it because I wasn't quite clear where the Nagel people, where the Nagel brother put the vehicle, put the truck. So I didn't realize that their truck pulls up in front of the mailbox at 34 Fairview. And then Karen Reed was in front of them. So would have been on the other side of the mailbox, and that there was no Jeep parked in front of the mailbox, right? So this is the headline. There was no Jeep parked in front of the mailbox where Brian Higgins and Brian Albert claim that the Jeep was. So my question to you all, before I kind of bring you up to speed as to what some others have emailed me and said or believed, right? I want to know what you guys, what you think. Why was there so much crazy about this Jeep? Why lie and say that Brian Higgins' Jeep was parked in front of the mailbox if it wasn't? Okay. So that is the question. Definitely want to get your guys' take on this. So let's see. What are we seeing? What are we seeing here? Sherry D writes, Ford 150 turned onto Fairview right behind the Lexus. Right, exactly. And that Ford 150, Sherry D, was right behind Karen Reed's car. And he swears, and I've watched both testimonies to make sure they were the same, that they pulled up right in front of the mailbox. And the sister, the Nagel's sister, came down the driveway. Like she walked out. She says she walked out the front door, which who knows if that's true, came down the path and then walked down the driveway, and to the brother's passenger side. He says he opened up the car door. She says he rolled down the window. Who knows? And there was no Jeep because right in front of him was Karen Reed's black Lexus. So why was there no Jeep? Okay, so Cam Scram says Jeep was at cops across the street. So why not say that, right? Why not say that is the question. Like, why lie and say that the Jeep was right in front of the mailbox? Right? Anybody, why lie? What, who cares? I mean, with these people, it's like, at this point, it's like, do they just lie for sport? Like, but I don't think so. I think every lie they tell is very intentional. So why? I don't know what that was in reference to. Sometimes the chat moves so fast that when I click on something, something else pops up. Let's see. Wait, what does this say? Anne Rugby writes, Higgins made an Irish egg as he testified season 1 to go to the Canton PD and get the plow. Went back to the house to plow to do them a favor when there was about right. And I actually, Anne Rugby, Anne Ruby. I love the name Ruby. I was almost named my daughter Ruby. There wasn't even a quarter inch of snow at the time when he says he drops that plow and does that weird sweep. There actually was like so little snow that it wouldn't even be on the driveway. It was like so little of amount. It wasn't even a quarter inch. It's like 1/18 of an inch. Ridiculous. So why all the sensitivity around the Jeep? Yes. Why? It is very odd. So let me tell you what, I just want to read this. Mark Hunt says, I was watching on my tablet, couldn't get the chat. Now my phone. Has anyone spoken about Laura Alessi? Yeah, it's funny. My sister will come on and tell you about Laura. My sister knows Laura. Turns out they're kind of neighbors. Long story, but yes, my sister met Laura, and Laura's a lovely human being. So, but I know from Melanie, just from Melanie, watching Melanie, that Laura had started, watching Melanie right at the beginning of the trial, and often commented and such. So I thought it was very cool that she was on with her. But okay, so well, let me tell you this, because now I lost that comment because it's so bad, it goes so fast. So somebody, and I don't know why this would be. Okay, yes, all right. So somebody else suggested that maybe it was because Higgins was waiting for John, and that might be true. But if that's the case, doesn't it? Who cares whether he's in the driveway or parked in front of the mailbox? Like, what does it matter one way or the other? So yes, and it seems like somebody else is saying that okay, wait, let's see. Aaron on tap says Maurer, he was parked across the street and felt it'll look ambushy. Maybe. I mean, maybe. Sherry D writes the Ford F-150, Ford 150. Sorry, Ricky, Ryan, Heather. More to the story too. Why didn't Brennan call the sober driver of the 150? Why didn't Brennan call the sober driver? Good question. Yeah, I don't know. Was he called during the first trial? I don't remember if he was called during the first trial. It's a good question. Who the hell knows? Very strange. But it feels to me, I mean, just from looking at Ricky's, Ricky D'Antano, right, is the name of the driver. Ryan Nagel seems like he's telling the truth. I mean, I believe him when he says that he saw the car right in front of him. He's absolutely sure there was no Jeep. So somebody else suspects that the reason that there was a Jeep parked there is that it was actually Caitlin's boyfriend, who has a white Jeep Cherokee. And the thinking was that Caitlin actually, let me get this straight, didn't leave at 2:00 in the morning the way that she said she did, that she left at 12:15 or sometime right around when this incident would have happened. And I guess that is what the first set of cops were told about when Caitlin left, that she was one of the first people to leave, that she had her boyfriend, who we're going to hear from, I guess now fiance, I don't know if they actually got married yet, but had him come and get her. And that's really weird because he was not supposed to come and get her. So the whole thing was her boyfriend, Tristan Morris, I think is his last name. We'll double check that. But his first name is Tristan. So they'd been together for like a decade. He allegedly was supposed to get up the next morning and plow. By the way, they are getting married this weekend. How about that? Oh, thanks, Queen Olivia. They're getting married this weekend. Wow. How fun. Right now, like this weekend in particular? Wow, that's crazy. Well, congratulations to them. That would be an interesting party, I'm sure. There's probably a lot of alcohol. A lot of alcohol. So the thing that happens, all right. He was supposed to go home. He leaves the waterfall at like 9:00 because he's going to get up at like 3:00 and start and go plow for this company, landlord or somebody he works with. By the way, I don't want to give that part away. I'm not going to tell you that part. So that was the whole thing. He was supposed to get up, and because of that, Caitlin, his girlfriend, the plan was that she was going to stay at her folks' house. And he was supposed to be getting sleep. So it was a big deal for her to call him and text him because she knew he had to get up at like 2:30 in the morning and, check in to start plowing. So the question is, why did she call him all of a sudden to come pick her up? Because she would have known that, right? Like she would have known that he has to get up in a few hours. So number one, it seems pretty shady to me that she would have done that at all, right? I mean, if you knew that your fiance had to get up at 3 a.m. and he had left the party early so that he could go to sleep, would you wake him up, 3 hours before he's supposed to go to come pick you up? And it was like a half-hour drive. It wasn't like 5 minutes down the street. So that's an hour drive for him, 40 minutes, 25 minutes each way. So that to me is very shady, right? Now, here's another thing. Somebody took that dog off the premises. And I'm not necessarily saying that it was them, but somebody who could have handled the dog. So it had to be somebody that knew the dog. Somebody, right? Somebody took that dog off the premises. So who did that? And to me, Caitlin or one of the family members would have been in the running for taking the dog. Okay, so that's something else to think about. Michael Santola sends $9.99 and says, if John was found on the lawn of any other citizen, God forbid a black citizen, every cop in 100 miles would have geared up stormtrooper style and occupied the street and every surrounding street for 4 miles. Yeah. Amen to that. Hold on. I'm going to get my dog. Hold on. All right. Come here, little dog. Here's my dog. This is Sunny. Say hi, everybody. This is Sunny. She looks more like, a stuffed animal, but she's a dog. Okay, there you go. And for Sunny's 5 pounds, but 5 pounds with a giant personality. And Sunny thinks, Sunny will go after a 100-pound dog without even thinking twice. So the fact that, Brian Albert tries to sell us on the fact that his 70-pound German Shepherd was just sleeping through all this commotion on the front lawn, the one breed of dog who has been genetically predisposed to attack and defend your home. And by the way, do we think that Brian Albert didn't know that about German Shepherds? Do we not think that Brian Albert intentionally got one of the world's scariest, most threatening dogs? Hello. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yes, Michael, it is crazy. And one of the things, number one, obviously everyone is scared of Brian Albert. I mean, that's my feeling. My feeling is that the local cops, like the Canton local guys, to me, these guys like Officer Seraph. Have you seen Officer Seraph? Has everybody seen Officer? If you haven't seen him, Google it and just watch like 3 minutes of his testimony. He's actually seems like a pretty nice man, but like he's afraid of Brian Albert. Like there's just no question, right? But not only that, Kevin Albert, and thank you, somebody sent me a bunch of stuff on him, which was crazy, right? So there was a very thorough investigation conducted by the Canton higher-ups, and also an independent investigation conducted about, after all these allegations came out, about Kevin Albert leaving his gun and his badge in Michael Proctor's car when they were out in the Cape, and like drinking on the job, all this stuff. Then he was caught like lying about his timesheets, lying on his timesheets. So interesting stuff on Kevin Albert. Very interesting. Shady guy, of course. Of course he is. Would anybody expect him not to be? Of course he was a shady guy. So, but he is also, he's on the force. Kevin Albert is a Canton police officer. This is, I tell you what, this case, it's just, so yes, Michael, it is disgusting. It is disgusting. And I will also tell you, if in any other case, particularly if it was a cop, if they had this much circumstantial evidence, butt dials, right? Google searches confirmed by not only the defense's expert, but by the feds, and I've seen evidence of my own, right? Like you can figure out pretty easily that Jen McCabe's Google search was legitimate. I love, by the way, how like the mainstream media believes that all of a sudden, I don't know if you've heard this, that like somehow we all dropped the Google search because the defense didn't bring it into the second trial. Like, no, there's just so much evidence that we didn't even bother. The defense team didn't even bother with the Google search because there's just like way too much evidence, like, more important evidence, right? So, but my belief is there's so much circumstantial evidence. I mean, think about, I don't know what Colin Albert's role is. That's something that I have had my eye on for a long time. So let's think about that, right? So I don't know what Colin Albert's role is, but I do know if there's one person who perjured himself, and I mean perjured himself, 100%, not like perjured himself, not like was deceptive, but like outright lied and said, I've never been in a fight. And within hours of making that statement, multiple videos hit social media of him in a physical fist fights with people. Multiple. I think I've seen with my own eyes too. I have heard there were more. So we know, like, they're lying. There's so much lying going on. It's like hard to keep track. My point is simple. There's so much circumstantial evidence. If anybody else, any other citizen, right, and not in Boston, which is just notoriously like such a corrupt place. Like I don't know what it is about Boston, but it's like in the water in Boston. It really, really is. And it always has been. Any other place, though, there's enough circumstantial evidence here to hang these guys forever, for juries to vote 1,000 times over again that they are guilty, right? I mean, if Hank Brennan can use Karen Reed's clips, media clips, as evidence, as consciousness of guilt evidence, look at all the evidence that you could pull on the Mick Alberts. It's so exhausting. It's nauseating. It's really, It's so upsetting. It truly is. It's truly, truly upsetting. It's truly upsetting. Okay, so back to this question. Why in God's name would somebody lie? Why would these men lie about this Jeep out front? I just don't get it. Now, somebody is also saying that Colin drives a Jeep. Yes, Colin does drive a Jeep. I've seen Colin's Jeep actually with my own eyes out in front of his dad's pizza shop or sub shop. Jen, the defendant, says the fact they dug up the basement tells me John dies there, and then they carry him out of the garage door later. So, yeah, interesting, Jen. We've been through this quite a bit. One of the challenges, there's a couple of different things that indicate that might have been difficult. I totally agree with you, number one. Number two, it would also help us to understand how stairs became part of the equation, why the Apple Health data would have believed that John was running up or downstairs, right? The problem, though, is it would have been, as actually my boyfriend pointed this out, because he was saying how difficult it would actually be to carry basically a dead man of John's height and stature and weight, how hard that would be. It would be really, really hard. I imagine just like Brian Albert throwing John over his shoulder and taking him out the back. But in order that we did this little experiment where my boyfriend, who's 210 pounds, 5'11", 5'10", he like laid down on the ground and was like, all right, try to move me. He played dead, obviously. And yeah, there was no way. I mean, I couldn't even beyond just lifting an arm, there was just no way. So he believed it would take 3 men to move John from the basement to the front of the yard. And maybe there were 3 men, but it is likely that it would have been really, really hard. It could have been in the basement. I mean, I think that's my first belief was that it was in the basement. After I saw the blood evidence in the garage and the steps, that led me to believe that there is a real possibility that he died in the garage. And another reason why I believe that is because if you look at the timeline, and again, somebody sent me this and it was awesome. Somebody sent me their timeline and very helpful. Chloe, so Brian Albert would have let Chloe out to go to the bathroom. That dog would have been out back approximately in the time frame that John and Karen were pulling up to the front of the house. If John gets up and does have some kind of an argument with Brian Higgins, the dog would have sensed the aggression and likely jumped the fence. Now, we have heard from Nicole that this dog jumped the fence, right? That this dog had jumped the fence before. So it's quite possible that the dog involves itself as a result of a scuffle between these 2 men. And however they wind up in the garage, that's how they wind up there. And it wouldn't surprise me because I don't know what was in that garage, right? We just know that I will tell you this, I am 100% sure of this. From analyzing very closely for a very long time, Brian Albert and Brian Higgins' statements. I mean, we're talking about, I've dedicated hours of my life, literally hours and hours and hours to these statements. I am absolutely sure that garage sends both of these men, when they bring up the garage, their hair is like lights on fire. They panic, their statements fall apart. They're both just stress level on these 2 guys when they're talking about the garage is through the roof. And I could imagine a world where Brian Higgins is waiting for John outside. Karen is not paying attention because that's happening kind of behind her, so she doesn't see any of that. He could have very easily said, hey, let's chat for a minute. And the truth is, does anybody know and has anybody heard anything about what was going on in the garage? According to the Alberts, it was like a place for storage. Do we know that for sure? Was it really a place for storage? Who knows what was in there? Maybe that was like Albert's man cave. I don't know. No idea. So, oh, this is interesting. Somebody's saying that Brian Albert, so Donald Ross is saying Brian Albert drove a Ford Edge. I don't think it was in the garage. And I'll tell you why I say that. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I say that. But I think, if I remember correctly, I think the Ford Edge was like in the driveway. Am I right about that? Somebody else will be able to verify that. But I think the Ford Edge wasn't hiding. Like it was his work vehicle. It would have been right out front. But yes, and so correct, right. So somebody was saying that maybe Colin was smoking in the garage. Bite my bits says Colin was smoking in the garage. Yeah, I mean, that was my sister and I absolutely both believed that for a long time. Could definitely see it 100%. And that would have been maybe Brian Higgins is in there while Colin is smoking, and he sees John walking up, and an altercation breaks out between the two of them. Colin's right there also. Absolutely. I mean, look, the reason why I am sure that there was a fight, it's not random. It's also not the obvious based solely on Brian Higgins and the waterfall video, which to me is very obvious, right? Like clearly Brian Higgins wants to fight John. That is not a secret. But what is interesting are John O'Keefe's injuries, right? John O'Keefe's injuries. I mean, that is the critical piece that gives away the idea that there was a fight. Not the lethal injuries, but the little injuries. The bruises on John O'Keefe's hands, the little tiny scratches on his nose and on his eyebrow. And then there's a scratch and what looked like a bruise internally to the temple on the other side. Those are the injuries that indicate to me there was a fight, because there is no other way to get those injuries from falling, like a slip and fall, as some people have suggested. You're not going to get bruises on the back of your hands, cut a cut on your eyebrow, a bruise on the temple, and this gash, and shatter the back of your skull and base of your neck, right? So there was a fight to me of some kind. The question to me is not even really like, was there a fight? I believe there was a fight. I personally believe it was Brian Higgins that delivers the punch that ends up being responsible for John's death. That's my personal belief. I also believe Colin had an involvement. But here's the thing. What I don't understand, and what is very confusing to me, is why are they lying about this Jeep? And why are they lying about where Caitlin Albert was and when she left the house? That is very strange to me. That just doesn't make sense. None of that stuff makes sense to me. So, I would say also, right? Wait, hold on. Yes, and people are talking about the Ford Edge. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. There were, I think at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Colin have a Ford Edge? I think there were 3 in the family. Kevin Albert had a Ford Edge, Colin Albert at the time had a Ford Edge, and Brian Albert had a Ford Edge. And I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Lucky didn't think it was didn't think it was Brian Albert's Ford Edge because of the color. Now, maybe I'm wrong. But, I don't know. I don't know which of the 3, but I will tell you this. I suspect, that's right. I suspect it might have been Kevin, and I'll tell you why. Because Kevin Albert is at the Minion meeting. And it's really interesting that somehow Kevin Albert has managed to stay pretty much off of like the Free Karen Reed movement radar. He really, really has. I mean, you almost never hear about Kevin Albert, and it's fascinating. And he inserts himself quite a bit in this case on a number of occasions. So to me, Kevin Albert is a lot more involved and would have been the guy, in my mind, that Brian Albert would have called for help. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting, Kirby. Interesting. Tristan might have helped with the lifting. Well, Tristan, I don't know how helpful. Have you seen Tristan? I'm not sure how helpful Tristan would have been. Maybe you're right. I don't know. We're going to take a look at Tristan. Yeah. I don't even want to give anything away. But yeah, Tristan is interesting. Let me just put it that way. He's interesting. So yes, I don't know. I will tell you though, the fact that Kevin Albert, how many of you guys, so Kevin Albert, for those of you that are newer to all of this, Kevin Albert is a Canton detective. So he was a Canton police detective. According to some of the, to Lieutenant Gallagher and to other people on the Canton Police Department, he was like a big shot detective. Like he was like known as like their ace in the hole detective. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting. Somebody's saying in the chat that that Tristan proposed right after the testimony. And you know what? That doesn't surprise me. Why? Because these kinds of events are going to bring people much closer together. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. If you're going through this kind of a traumatic experience, will bring people closer together. And, if you're Tristan, I bet you this would be a scary thing. I bet you it would be scary, right? Like, would you be scared if your father-in-law was Brian Albert? I think probably, right? A little bit. Lion Mom says, I have sympathy for the O'Keefes, but they could really initiate some change within the police department if they held them accountable for such a shoddy investigation. I totally agree with that, 100%. And it's funny because listening today earlier to Paul O'Keefe's interview with Christina Rex after the mistrial, he doesn't do that at all. I mean, he immediately starts making excuses. And by the way, if you haven't seen that, you should, because he says something, you guys, that, I mean, it was like, when he said it, I was so shocked by the statement that my brain would not allow me to believe he meant it. I was like, there's no way that he believes that. No way. So there's this moment where Paul O'Keefe is talking exactly about the investigation. And he says, well, it was snowing, the Canton PD, they did the best job they could given the circumstances. So he's making excuses. He also focuses, interestingly, not on, oh, well, yes, even Proctor says that his statements about Karen Reed were regrettable. And, we agree that he shouldn't have said them. But then he goes off on a tangent about how they never should have had those text messages, that they were only, the only reason that the defense had them was because of the feds, and that it was inappropriate for them to have them. Right? So his focus is on the fact that they shouldn't have even had those to begin with, which is absurd because it misses the point. The problem with those text messages is not just that he's having an inappropriate discussion with his childhood buddies. It's that he had already decided within seconds of this case unfolding that Karen Reed was guilty. But so did Paul O'Keefe. Again, if you have not seen that interview, you absolutely need to, because it's insane. It's really insane. According to Paul, as he's talking about this police, how he feels bad because they did the best job that they could, these Canton police officers, one of the things he says is, and they did find the sneaker and taillight pieces. One of the things he says. Now, I don't know, maybe not everybody caught that. Maybe he was just, for the sake of ease, conflating all of the investigations together. Like he was talking about the Cannes Police Department and didn't like verbalize that he had switched in his mind over to the Massachusetts State Police. But I don't think so. I think that what he was saying was that the Canton police found taillight and a sneaker. And if that's true, that gives you an incredible idea of just how like off in left field the O'Keefe family actually is. Because that is crazy. And yeah, so somebody is saying, yeah, Paul's text exchange with Turtle Boy was very telling. Yes. How do you say this? Raveland 1? Raveland, is that how you say it? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure which text exchange, if you're talking about the one that was before, the one that was like earlier on before the first trial, I think, because at that point, it was very interesting. And at that point, Paul did not think that Karen Reed did this on purpose. At that point, he still thought that it was an accident. Now, and after the first trial, he has shifted completely. Now he believes that, you know, she's this horrible, evil person who clearly murdered him on purpose because they were having a fight and she was jealous. That's his version of events. And also, if you haven't seen this, you have to. If you have not seen the Christina Rex interview, you need to see it because it's pretty wild. Paul is very sure that he and his family, they figured it all out. They completely cracked the case by 2:00 before they ever spoke to any investigator or anybody. They figured the case out because Karen, who was saying that she wanted to be there for the kids, left very quickly after sitting with the nephew, John's nephew. They sat down together, Paul on one side, Karen on the other. Paul tells his nephew that John is not coming back, that John is gone. Karen says nothing, gets up and leaves. And that's it. Like, she goes upstairs, she packs her stuff, she comes down, she leaves. At one point, Paul walks outside to see the tail light because he wants to see, is the tail light, you know, cracked or whatever. And the car is already gone. So in Paul's mind, right, that was, she's guilty because it was a snowstorm. This is what he's saying. I drove in that snow from the hospital. I saw how bad the snowstorm was. And the fact that she, you know, left to go back to Dighton, it wasn't Dighton. Is it Dighton? Where was the house? I forget where the house was, but it was a half hour away. And so to Paul, it was too far in a snowstorm for Karen to be driving. Why did she want to leave the house? And that was all guilt. Now, I have a completely different take on that whole sequence of events, but not Paul. And so at that moment, Paul decides he is 100% sure Karen Reed did this. Then on the way home, there was one more thing. On the way home, I guess as she was driving back, she calls Paul's wife. And that's when she says something like, I have to just remember the bad times. Now, you have to keep in mind, guys, Karen Reed had the most hellacious, traumatic, insane, drunk, maniac night a person could have. Okay. What she did to her nervous system alone the night before, first, by working herself up into an absolute, complete frenzy, believing that John was cheating on her, then passes out, wakes up, thinks he's dead immediately, then finds him dead on the lawn at Brian Albert's house, has no idea what happened, can't remember anything, is in a total brownout, completely hysterical, has no idea what day, what time, where we are, what planet we're on, ends up being sectioned at the hospital on suicide watch, gets released with an hour of sleep, right? Drank how many, God only knows how much she actually had to drink, then goes right to One Meadows and is sitting next to Paul and John's nephew, and Paul is giving the speech to the nephew. You wonder why Karen got up and left. Are you kidding? you kidding me? Of course she got up and left. Who could handle that? I mean, she was not a mother. She couldn't handle that. Listen, few among us could. But Karen was not one of those people. She doesn't want children. There was a reason she didn't want children. She didn't want this responsibility, right? So, oh, I just brought you back. And there was another one. Hi again, Tom. Okay, wait. There was somebody else that I just wanted to see. Oh, where are you? I will find you. I promise. I will find you. It was. I will find you. Oh yeah. Okay. So let's see here. Here we go. Michelle writes, yes, spouses don't have to testify against each other. Maybe that is why. Right. Maybe there was spousal privilege. Absolutely. Maybe that was why. But again, I mean, this guy, is he really going anywhere? If you're Tristan, like, are you going anywhere? I think he was all in. He was all in. I mean, I can't wait to show you this testimony. It's gonna blow your mind. It's nuts. These people, man. What is wrong with these people? My sister's here, so we're gonna bring her on here in just a second. Thank you so much, Michelle, for sending your $4.99. I really, 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 really appreciate it. Chuck Pascal sends $5 and says, "Did you see that Dever is related to Matt McCabe?" So was that confirmed? Because I did see. Okay, I can't remember what it was, but it's like her parent, like her father's last name. I did see that she was related perhaps to somebody, but I didn't get the final word on whether or not she was. I couldn't tell whether or not they had like a shared name or namesake, or if it actually was that they were related. I tried to hunt it down myself even. So if that's official, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Would it surprise you? Does it surprise anyone at this point? Would anything any of these people do surprise any of us, right? All right, so we're going to bring on my sissy here. We are adding you. Hello, sister.
Hello, everybody. Hello, sister.
How are you? I love your background. How cool.
I mean, it's just like my bed. So I was like, why not,
cool.
Right above my bed. Yeah.
That's amazing. Look at, oh my God, It's like a journey back in time. It's like, these are all things that I'm very familiar with.
That's so funny.
It is so cool. Yes, one of my favorite memories, my sister and I did this little like new edition tour because that was like our first, crush band. And I mean, like, when I say first, I mean, I was like 6, she was like 3, we're going way, way back. We're going back. Yeah. So love them though. So you can see them up over her shoulder there.
Yes.
How are you, sister?
Good.
What's happening?
Excited. Oh, just trying to soak in all the information that's coming out. It's a lot. It's so funny because we never really thought about it that much because how could we, right? It was always just like, if she goes to jail, that scenario I had played out a few times in my head, like what would be the next step there. But I never went down this road, and it never, and it's just like, wow, I didn't think that all of this, it would be this much consumption. And what really did it was verdict, and then followed by a 2020, and then followed by a Dateline special on nights that they don't even air those shows. And I got several messages from people, just like from my past, that probably saw what I was posting on Facebook and just was like, what is this? And then that they see it on 2020, they see it on, like, they saw that the verdict was such a big deal. I mean, who didn't, right?
Right.
And so
now they're taking an interest.
Now they're like, oh, what's this?
Yes, I've seen that
like,
too.
Oh my God, it's so bizarre to have that, because I'm one of those people, like, true crime. I mean, all I do is watch documentaries, or documentaries in general, just like real events, like stories on real events as much as possible. I don't I don't really get, unless it's like, cartoons, like movies I watch with my kids, Disney movies and stuff. But
Yes, you are a
it.
reality TV junkie
Yeah,
and always
exactly.
have been.
Yes, that's a good point. I was gonna say, even if it's just reality TV,
Absolutely.
at
Always
its
have been.
finest.
Yes. No, that is like
But yeah.
always been the case. Yes. No, that's so true though. I'm seeing that too, that like, because the verdict was publicized on all these mainstream media outfits and regular television, now people who had no clue about this case are like curious. What's this? Oh, wow. Why is all this attention on this? And are now like, we're all like wrapping it up, right? We're all on the other side of it going, we went through, God, this whole roller coaster, and now people are just learning about it, which is hilarious, right?
Yeah, it is. And then they're
really,
coming back.
Funny.
And they're like getting to know all these people that, just the crew, the lawyers, and everybody.
Right.
It's so interesting. So now they're all like, hey, I heard Karen Reed. Whoa. Like now, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh,
right.
Well.
Yeah, right. How much time do you have? How many weeks?
I say this because we need to find justice for John OKeefe.
Of course.
I will not stop. People keep, oh, you're going to take a break. I'm like, well, I guess that was step one, right? Step one, but break. I've never been more motivated in my life to move to Canton and just like, just get like the info. Like, let's just get this done already. It's like, you know what I mean?
I know.
These people don't deserve all of this, press and attention they're getting.
Attention.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that makes it a little frustrating, but at the same time, we have to I want to prove it. Somebody, please, just for the family more than anything.
Well, I mean, I've been doing a lot of investigating recently about the family and like into their belief systems. How did they perceive the verdict? Like, how did they perceive the evidence? What were they focused on in terms of like, did they focus on ARCA? Did they focus on, and I don't know if you just heard what I was saying, but according to Paul O'Keefe, it was the Canton police who found the taillight and the sneaker. Now, that seems like a silly little detail, except that's a really significant detail, because if the Canton police are the ones that find the taillight and the sneaker, then Karen Reed probably would have been guilty, because that taillight and sneaker were not there when the Canton police were doing their investigation. Those items were not found until the CERT team and Brian Tully, let me just say this differently. Those items were not found until Brian Tully's physically on the scene at 34 Fairview. And that's at like between 5:30 and 7 p.m. Right. So if he believes that, I mean, this is a man who also believes he knows a lot about the evidence. I mean, I think, how do I want to say this? It's clear to me that Karen Reed did not trust John's family, did not want them raising these children because she cared about them. She didn't think these people were equipped, did not think they were going to raise them the right way. I don't know exactly why, but it was clear to me just from her words, her actions, that she didn't trust John's family and did not have, didn't feel like they were the right people to be raising these children.
Yeah.
Right. That's why she was so flipped out that morning, saying to Carrie and to Jen, right? Yeah. Who's going to take care of the kids? And I mean, she knew who was going to take care of the kids.
Right.
Right. Grandma and grandpa and brother Paul are taking care of the kids. But that was the problem. That's what she was worried about.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand now. Feeling like someone, and I think I kind of understand her. I mean, I can't even, she's like a asset. She teaches asset management. I think that's what she was.
Yeah, she was a financial.
Yeah. And when you think about it, and you're like, that's like one huge thing like that was missing in my life. I'm not going to speak for the both of us, but I probably could. Right. And it's funny because and I admire that so much, and that was probably a big part of how, like, she's very good at managing life and like understanding what all that means. It seems like, I mean, nobody in the world would have handled this the way she did, to put together this team of lawyers. I mean, she called you.
She has a high level executive function. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And these are, Boston, blue class, Boston,
blue collar.
Blue collar, hardworking, Boston people, that, didn't have the money maybe to get the education, or just there. It's very much like a labor like town. I mean, it really is. And I feel
100%.
like I could see her looking at like, oh, those are the people, that are going to raise, they're all about family and love. And it does, but maybe they're not really teaching, that like sort of managing.
So
that,
I don't, that's an interesting, I see it a little differently in that I think I think it was much more about like ignorance, not about,
okay. I was
not
trying
about
to be
like the
a little
money.
less.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The vibe I get is like Paul, I guess he's a decent looking man. That's a bonus. That's a plus for him. I'm sure that's gotten him through, a long way. That goes a long way, certainly. But like, I just don't, I mean, Jack, if you haven't listened, you should go back and watch the video I did recently on Paul, because I
saw some of it. I saw some of it, but I will go back.
You should go back, because
I will.
It is like, it is a little bit like, you're like, okay, I mean, on one hand, he's saying, I think I have a pretty good handle on the evidence. And then like within a second later is starting to talk about how, the Canton PD are the ones that found the sneaker and the taillight. And again, if you, and that he was convinced that he knew without a doubt that the evidence that Karen did this, and he knew that because she left his house. That's the evidence.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, how about this guy that was on with Vinny Politan the other day? I couldn't even watch it. I wanted
John Jackson.
I can't. And then that other lady, that other woman that was on with that face. Oh, I can't. I'm like, they're like, I'm disgusted. I'm like, really? You're disgusted? I don't even know. I'm disgusted, and I don't know any of you people. How about that? I'm disgusted because I am somebody who sees this. I watch. It reminds me of, I watched like Turtle Boys. What he said, because people were about the comment and the statement that he put out, which I thought was like done to perfection, by the way. Like, credit to Turtle Boy. Amazing. Because I understood him completely. I would have never second guessed that, but I could see how people would think, the comment about like, the defense straying away a little, which is like, he wasn't the one to drop the first interview or whatever, which was, I couldn't even believe that people were like, I know. But I was watching that whole thing, and, and him, and saying like, I just don't understand how people don't get like, how they don't see it. Like these other people don't see it. And I guess this is, I don't really have to go to one person or another, but it did remind me of something that he said, like, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but just like relevant in the letter, that this is like, follow the evidence, guys. What evidence are they following?
Well, I know the answer.
He's like, I'm just somebody who I don't need clout. I don't need all this. I'm just somebody who's like a normal human. You know what I mean?
You're talking about John Jackson? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
How like, and what you were saying about Paul too, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes. Yep. Well, yeah, John is a really interesting guy, actually, because he thinks of himself as this very logical man, and he has a very hard time. He doesn't want to come across as unreasonable, but he's clearly very emotional. The answer to your question is how, is number one, emotion, and number two, if you start out with a steadfast belief in something, then your brain is going to just highlight examples that confirm it and ignore things that don't. And that's that's the answer.
I'm trying to look in the chat, and I'm saying, like Ann Ruby says, right? The defense proved her innocence, right, Ann? I mean, that's how I feel. So if you're those people, these, how do you not go back? If 12 people put her in jail, I really would have to reevaluate, like I would probably watch it over and over and be like, how in God's name do these people get to this conclusion? At some point you have to take emotion out of it to get, this is about the truth. Isn't that
right?
I mean,
But
it's
but
just crazy. I don't understand it. I don't know. Honestly, it's like the thing as that I like when you talk about the most, because it's the behavioral side, it's the psychological side, of like all of it is because I cannot understand that, Sam. I cannot understand it. I know a lot of people can't. Watching these videos with these people saying they're disgusted.
Yeah.
I literally I can't control myself. I mean, I can't watch that kind of stuff when I'm like in public, running errands with the headphones, because I will lose my mind and people will be like, who is this? Like,
well, that's the thing. I mean,
it makes me angry.
There's a number of things. First, I think for John Jackson, there's a few little tells where, he's had moments of doubt. He has had moments of doubt, but a guy like that, you have to also understand there's a lot of incentive. So even these children, like the O'Keefe family has made Karen the villain, the enemy. She's the enemy that they are rallying around to try to destroy. Like they have come together to find justice against Karen, right? So she's been like the rallying cry for the whole family. That's number
really
one.
sad.
Number two, Brian Albert, Jennifer McCabe, these people have inserted themselves into their lives so much so that it would be terrifying. Imagine how scary it would be. You've had your niece and nephew hanging around with the Albert kids. You've allowed Jennifer McCabe to be such a close person to your nephew's life, to your niece's life.
Yeah.
Imagine having to come to terms. Like if the feds, let's say the feds, because Paul said he wanted to speak to the feds. Those are the only people that would have a prayer to try to convince the O'Keefes to think differently. They're the only ones that could maybe do it. And it would have to be such incredibly overwhelming evidence. And even then, think about how devastating and scary it would be to find out that this guy, Brian Albert, this woman, Jennifer McCabe, these people who have inserted themselves in your life for the last 3 years are actually the ones responsible. And Karen, is not. It would be soul crushing. And if any one of them, if John Jackson, I mean, think about it. This is John's former buddy. He's become a fixture in the family. If he believes Karen Reed, what's he going to do? He's going to go back to Peg and say, I think I've changed my mind. He's going to go back to, what's Paul going to do if he changes his mind? He's going to go back to his niece, Kaylee and Patrick, and say, guys, we were all wrong. Karen's innocent. I mean, think about what that would do to Kaylee and Patrick. There's a lot of incentive to not.
I get that. Of course.
Right. So it's
get
not
the
that
incentive,
simple.
but it's crazy. I mean, it's just like weird. It's actually weird. It's actually weird. How many times did you see it? These evidence. I mean, and another thing I'm sick of hearing, like Brian Albert wanted to say in his one of the many dumb things he said.
About the
is that
cover up.
50 people would need to
I love
be involved.
it.
You guys have to understand, like 30 to 50 people would have to be involved.
I know.
Like, no. Maybe 30 to 50 people might have to be scared of you, bro.
Totally.
That's about it. And that's
totally
not that many people when you're some big time, as he would say. I'm a Boston cop. I'm not a Canton police officer.
Right.
Okay.
Right. No, it's so stupid. I mean, it's so stupid.
Last time I checked, Boston was, and it doesn't matter.
I know.
As every other cop on the planet would say on any other outlet you can possibly, or down the street or whatever. Ask your local cop.
So, like George Miller is saying the same thing you're doing. There's no way they don't see the logic of her innocence, but they don't. I mean, that's the thing. They really don't. I mean, in order to understand this, the only example that I think fits is just politics. It's the only example that fits. And I'm not getting into politics now. I'm just saying it's the same exact thing. It's like when one person or one group of people looks at something and says, okay, let's say, like, who cares which president? Pick any president, and they're giving a speech, right? You have one half of the country looking at that speech and going, this man is the worst thing that ever happened to the world. And you have the other half of the country looking at that same speech, same words, and looking at it the exact opposite way. That is exactly what you're dealing with the O'Keefe family. That's exactly what it is.
There's got to be someone there, someone that is like somewhat like
They think that
not with all this media hype too. Maybe I don't know.
I heard John Jackson saying that Karen paid her support. I mean, they're saying stuff that is just fundamentally ridiculous.
I don't get it on national television after 12 people are, and these jurors, every single one of them is being specifically asked.
Why did that happen?
I don't know. That was weird. Every single
Welcome,
one of them
Kelly.
Is being,
sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. They're all being asked the same exact questions. Do you think she is just not guilty by reasonable doubt, or do you think she's innocent? And without even blinking, we think she was in. I think she's innocent. I think
the jurors you're talking about.
Yes.
Jurors. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is ignorance. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. 100%.
Isn't that what we're supposed to go by?
Yeah.
Most people would say, if they're not even saying, well, yeah, there just wasn't enough evidence to convict her.
Absolutely.
They're literally saying, no, it wasn't. John O'Keefe was not hit. I mean, why don't you just show anyone the picture of his arm and case closed? But anyways.
Absolutely. Yes. Kel says, in my opinion, it doesn't matter who's on the lawn dying, cop or no cop. Any normal person would go outside to see if they can assist or something. But, he was in a cold sleep. So here's the thing, Cal, too. That's, of course, that's the reason why I immediately knew that there was something amiss. Because Brian Albert, and if you consider his character, the kind of man he is, the kind of man, you look at him, the oldest of 7, this big, tough guy. There's no world where this guy, he has a pet German Shepherd, which by itself says something about his character. There's just no world where this guy was not aware of what was going on, number one, and number two, would not have come out. But the reason he didn't come out is because he knew John was dead, and it was just too risky. There's no way that he could come out because John was dead. So what was he going to do? He was going to come out and then what? Pretend to try to do CPR. But his chest, like Jen tells us, when you push down on John's chest, it was like a rock because he'd been dead for 6 hours. And as a trained medic, the way that he was, of course he would have known that. So either he would have looked incompetent because he doesn't tell the first responders that when they show up, right? Or just pretends plays stupid. Think about it. How many times have we seen on Dateline that the person who finds the body is the one who's immediately suspected of the crime, right? So because he knew he was dead, number one, and number two, because he knew that and didn't want to incriminate himself, he just made the calculation that it was roll the dice and just say we slept through it, even though it is utterly absurd. And even more absurd, and I love, one of my favorite moments of the second trial was when Jackson, lets Jen have it right before lunch about this. Why Jennifer shows up at that house and doesn't suspect that anybody in the house might be in peril. Like he says, how do you know something didn't happen to the people in the house? There's no dog barking. There's no dog barking. I mean, that would have been the first thing. There's no dog barking. She knows there's a German Shepherd in that house. There's no dog barking. John is, on the front lawn. What the hell is John doing on the front lawn? Lights are out. There's no signs of life in the house. You don't go in the house. Wouldn't the first thing, let's think about this. You pull up on your sister's or your siblings' front lawn, who you were just with the night before, right? Yeah. You're just with them. You just left 4 hours ago. You pull up and the first thing you do is you don't just go right into the house. I mean, Jennifer McCabe's behavior, and I'm not even getting back into the 911 call again, but it is so egregious. And that isn't even factoring in Brian Albert yet. And where is the dog, right? I mean,
I know.
Let's talk about that. This dog would have been losing its mind, you guys. It would have been losing its mind. We all, on all those dash cam videos, anywhere where there was sound, probably for 2 blocks, you would have heard that dog barking like a sociopath, like a psycho. That dog was either dead because he shot it or it was absconded off the property by somebody who, I don't know, had to have been Caitlin, in my opinion, because, right? Yep. I mean, who else could that dog have gone with and not hurt, especially in such a frenzy?
Right.
It had to have been Caitlin, right? It has to be. I mean, so to me, that had to be what happened. So with that, let's do this. I want to play Tristan Morris. It's quick. It's very quick. I don't know. I didn't remember seeing this. Now, I think I did, but I didn't know enough about this case at the time to know like who this was. I guess I just didn't understand who he was, right? So he didn't seem that important to me because he wasn't Brian Albert and he wasn't Jennifer McCabe.
There's a lot of people like that. Like,
I know. And they, by the way, turn out to be pretty freaking interesting.
Yeah, if you go back and
pretty freaking interesting. Yes. That's what I've been doing, by the way. I have been spending
Me too.
Going back.
Me too. I did all the major ones so far, like Albert, the McAlberts, everybody. Colin, I started with Colin. I've been doing the whole thing, so.
All right, let's see about this. Let me see. Give me a sec here. Let's see how I can do this. All right. Do we see that? No, right? Here we go. All right. Hold on. Here it is. Woohoo. All right. So let's hear. I want you guys to hear this. Let's make sure we can hear it. We got sound?
Yep. I think so.
Okay. Because I can hear it.
Hey, whenever you are ready, Mr. Lally. Good morning.
Yeah, we got sound.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Morris, Morris.
And Mr. Morris, where do you live?
Easton.
And who?
Can you hear it? Yes?
Yes, I can hear it.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
Caitlin Albert.
And what is
It's crazy.
She's my girlfriend.
And how long have the two of you been together?
Roughly 8 years.
And with respect, well, let me ask you this: Do you work, sir?
Yes, I do.
What do you do for work?
I'm a union pipe fitter.
And how long have you been doing that?
6 years.
Now, if I could turn your attention to the evening of January 28th, 2022,
Look.
The following early morning of the 29th.
All right, so
Early morning of the 29th?
Yes.
look at this guy. All right, so look at this man. Let me see. Can I put this in? He looks terrified. Okay. Why is Tristan Morris terrified? Why? Explain this to me. Who the hell is this guy? Right? He's a nobody. He's a nothing. He's allegedly the boyfriend of the daughter of the homeowner at 34 Fairview, who is allegedly just a witness, according to him, in this trial, right? He's not on trial. He's not even like related to anybody on trial. He's allegedly just the boyfriend of he's a witness, right?
Right.
Why does this
Was
man
he like a character witness or something?
well, you're going to find out. I'm not going to tell you. You have to see this.
All right.
But the look on this man's face, I mean, he is petrified. And then wait to hear this. I mean, it's wild. It's like, somebody explain this to me. Like, what is going on here? There's something going on here. And that's why we're watching this. So let's watch.
Yes, I do.
And do you recall what days of the week those were?
Friday and Saturday, I believe.
And on that particular Friday, what, if any, plans did you have yourself and your girlfriend, Caitlin?
For me, it was just an ordinary day. I went out and I met them for a drink.
So for me, it was just an ordinary day. What? Think about this. For me, it was just an ordinary day. So who wasn't it an ordinary day for, dear? Like, this statement to me is so suspect. What the hell does that mean? For me, it was just an ordinary day.
And about what time?
Right?
I'm going to ask you to keep your voice.
Okay.
So you indicated you went and met them. Who is that?
My girlfriend, Caitlin, and that's all I remember.
And,
So them are the people that were not having an ordinary day. Just FYI. That's who they are. They were not having an ordinary day. For me, it was an ordinary day. For them, it was not an ordinary day.
I recall where was it?
Waterfall Bar and Grill.
That's somewhere that you and Caitlin had been to before?
Yes, multiple times.
And do you have
Poor
any
guy.
idea what time that was on the 28th?
I don't recall.
And do you recall who, if anyone else, was there in addition to yourself and your girlfriend?
No, I do not.
Doesn't
Do you
remember.
recall whether or not either of their parents were there?
I don't remember.
You're familiar with her parents, though? Is that fair to say?
Yes, I am.
So he doesn't remember who was at the waterfall. He doesn't know if her parents were there. He doesn't remember
How
what
is that
time they went
possible?
there. Right. It's not. Well, that's the point. It's not. But wait, he doesn't remember everything else that happened either.
Oh,
Familiar
okay.
with the family, correct?
Yes, I am.
And if you recall, about how long was it that you were at the waterfall that
I couldn't estimate, but it wasn't that long.
I couldn't estimate.
And wasn't that long? Why? What was it that caused you to leave that night?
Later that night, I had to go plow. I was supposed to wake up pretty early.
Okay, important. I was supposed to wake up really early. Of course, that's not what happened. He didn't actually, guaranteed, Tristan Morris did not go to plow that morning, but he was supposed to wake up really early. That was the plan, right? But that's not what happened. But that's what he was supposed to do. But he has no memory of anything that happened.
And
It's
as far as
crazy.
plowing, is that something that you do sort of on the side on a fairly regular
Who
basis?
cares about any of this,
Yes,
right?
when I can do it, I do it. It's extra money.
And how is it that, what if any relationships you have with the company that you do any sort of plowing or shoveling for?
It's my landlord's company.
And is that, when you say plowing, is
guy.
that sort of residences, businesses, or something else?
All of those, residence, houses, anything, businesses, could be any of them.
So it could be a commercial parking lot, could be a condo, could be a business park, any of those things.
Correct.
And about what time was it, if you know, that you were supposed to sort of be ready or on call to go out to?
So we were waiting for the snow. I just had to be on call for 3 to 4 in the morning, just have my phone on standby and be ready to go. Just how it always is.
And so when you left, or when you went to the waterfall,
So what he's telling us here is like that's just how it always is, but that's not how it was on this night. That's what he just said. But doesn't matter.
at that time, was it snowing?
I don't believe so.
And when you left the waterfall to go home, why did you went home to rest? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I needed to sleep. Yes.
And when you left the waterfall to go home to Easton to get some rest or to get some sleep, was it snowing at that point?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
And at some point
Who knows?
prior to you going out and either plowing or shoveling early that morning, who, if anyone, was contacted?
Can you repeat the question, please?
After you went home to rest or get some sleep, well, first of all, were you able to get any sleep?
Barely.
And while you were home in Easton, who, if anyone, was reaching out to you?
Yes, my girlfriend.
And so your girlfriend, Caitlin, was it calling, texting?
Oh, am I froze?
Yeah.
Am I frozen? Am I back?
Okay. We're back.
I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Okay. Let's see.
How was she
Do we
reaching
see? Are we back?
I believe both.
We're back.
out? And
I
about
don't think
what
it likes
No.
you,
point
but
in
I
the
don't think
evening
it likes
did you
to do
start
both.
to, get
How
calls
weird.
or texts?
I don't remember.
And at some point, based on those calls and texts, what, if anything, did you do?
Can you elaborate?
At some point, did you leave Easton and go back to camp?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any
Here we go.
recollection of when that was over the course of the evening or the early morning?
No, I don't remember a time.
And in relation to when you got, let me ask you this, as far as the
Seems
calls and the
crazy.
texts that you received from your girlfriend, Caitlin, was that one or two, or were they repetitive?
There was a couple different texts, yeah.
And over the course of about how long a period of time? Was it all within a couple minutes or half hour, hours? If you,
I don't recall.
and after receiving those, you went to somewhere in Canton, correct?
Yes,
And where did you go?
34 Fairview Road.
Are you familiar with that address?
Yes, I am.
And familiar with it because at some point during the time that you and Caitlin were dating before you moved in together, she lived there, correct?
Correct.
And
Me too, so
how long
me
a
too,
drive
for
is
sure.
that from where you live in Easton to 34 Fairview Road?
21 to 25 minutes, I would say.
And do you recall what vehicle you were driving on that occasion?
I do. I was driving a white Jeep Cherokee.
whose white Jeep Cherokee is that?
Caitlin's.
And did you have a vehicle at that time?
I did.
And what kind of vehicle did you have?
I believe it was a Ford Fusion.
Fairly older.
I believe.
So I believe it was a Ford Fusion.
Come on, you don't know?
Okay, but important. Just put a pin in this. He admits he was driving a white Jeep, and we know that Jen McCabe saw a white Jeep parked in front of the mailbox that wasn't there, right? That wasn't there. That wasn't Brian Higgins' Jeep, and that wasn't there. I had to have been though. It had to. That doesn't work either, right? Because even if he had been there, trying to figure out why Brian Albert and Brian Higgins are lying about his Jeep. I just don't get it. I don't get it. It's bothering the crap out of me. Why lie about this Jeep? That's exactly right. Why lie about this Jeep? Now, somebody, Mel C777, was suggesting that the Jeep, because Caitlin, so that really they were lying about the Jeep because it was his Jeep. It was Caitlin's Jeep that was really there, and the Alberts didn't want anyone to know exactly where Caitlin's movements were on the night. And the only reason why that's important potentially is because Tristan, the plan was for Tristan to go home and go to sleep because he was supposed to wake up and start plowing at 3 to 4 in the morning. He was like on call, like he says. He actually didn't go, but he doesn't tell us that. I'm just telling you that that's the truth about what happened. So the question is, right? What time did Caitlin leave? So try to listen for that. Did she leave immediately following the incident with John, or was she really there until the end of the night? That would be the question to keep in mind. And of course, look at this guy. This testimony alone to me is so telling. Like, this guy has nothing to do with anything.
No, this is bad. Yeah,
nothing
really
to do with
just
anything.
why is he there?
Right, nothing. But that's the whole thing. He's got nothing to do with anything. Why are you so scared? Why do you look like you're going to like pee your pants?
I know it does. Somebody.
Why are you
suggested he
telling
was on
us?
benzos. That's probably.
He's like, I don't remember anything. I don't remember. He doesn't remember anything.
Yeah, because he was on benzos. That's what someone said. I love it.
That's right. So that's right, misperception. That's right. They originally said that she left at 12:30, and then it changed. And the question is, see, originally, I think most of us believed that he was lying to try to keep Caitlin and Colin out of the house during this incident, right? So the original idea was like, all right, everybody said neither Caitlin or Colin were there when John showed up. That was like the original, like, so the idea was like, well, maybe that was a lie. So they were probably there longer. But the truth is, maybe she wasn't. Maybe he really did pick her up earlier. And here's the thing, and this is why we're watching this. Tristan refuses to give a time. He's being asked about the timeline. Okay, so part of why he's being called is for his information about the timing.
Right.
And he refuses to say anything about time. Nothing. I don't know what time. I don't know when. He will not say anything about what time anything happened. And he's terrified. I mean, he's terrified. This guy is scared out of his wits.
Yeah.
The question is, why is he so scared? And why is he hell-bent on not telling us what time any of this really happened at? It just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. So this guy that we are looking at, he's involved somehow. Yes, he's involved.
Yeah.
This man was involved in some way, even if it was just to pick up Caitlin and take the dog out of the house. That's kind of my question. Were they the ones that would have taken Chloe?
Right.
That would be the question. Michelle, right? The Alberts were a well-to-do family. Why would their daughter date a guy who plows snow? Well, that's a great question, but because they're not really well-to-do. They're working class people, right? I mean, they have money.
They're well known. They're well known.
They're well known. Oh yeah, they're well established. They're well known.
Yeah.
But this entire community of Canton, Massachusetts was actually like built from like the Southie kind of upward mobility, right? So it was like in New York City, it's like the gentrified, but
It's
in
where
so
all the people from Southie went to go live in the suburbs. Oh, I'm gonna move out of Boston.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, that's
Thank
like
you.
that's like
That's what happened.
everyone. That's like everyone north of Boston. They all go to like Stoneham to
Right.
like that's the suburbs because you can get so much more for your money,
Right.
and it's still like right there.
Right.
It's a little 10-minute do drive, easy 95. That's it.
Exactly.
Done.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's why the whole community is Irish. That's why the whole community alcohol is literally is so much. I mean, think about this. This is so funny to me. So when all these people, and this I think is just true, but all these people are talking about, oh, I remember the 29th because that was my brother's birthday, but Brian Albert Jr. doesn't go out for his birthday.
I know.
They're out celebrating Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday without him.
Yeah. So
right?
weird. Yeah. I've always thought that was weird to the point where it took me, I always like knew, but I would always think that Colin was Brian's kid, that it was Colin's birthday. I'm sorry, that it was Colin's birthday. Do you know what I mean? And then like first I thought, okay, Colin was the son, but then I quickly knew that he wasn't, but I got so, it's very confusing. It's very confusing.
It's just absurd. It's like absurd. It's like, it's just a reason for everybody to get together and go out and get drunk. And, and that's really what it's about, right?
Yeah, totally.
Alcohol is air in this community, like literally. And I don't remember where I read or heard this, but it's commonplace. You see how everybody, Nicole Albert actually also leaves the establishment with a can in her hand. She leaves with, I forget, she's the White
Claw. It's like totally normal.
It's totally normal.
Even,
yes.
Like not even.
John leaves with his drink. Karen leaves with her drink. She leaves with her White Claw.
Yeah. No one's like trying to hide it in their purse. I mean, these are like established, law enforcement locally. Some of these, they're known. I mean, Higgins, his office is in Canton. So it's like, bro, I mean, they obviously fear nothing.
Okay, Charlie, I will do it right now. Let me see if I can find you. Oh, I think I did. Oh, no, wait. Nope. There's two Charlies. I'm coming. Here he is. I gotcha. There we are. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Charlie. I really appreciate you. Love your show and the way you communicate. Do lower IQ people have a real difficult time. Juggle timeline. Okay. Wow. That is a great question. And there's so many different ways to answer this question. I wouldn't even know where to start. A lot of it depends on why someone has a lower IQ, right? So IQ is actually a sum score that is broken down into subcategories. And those subcategories are incredibly important because it would be the difference between, let's say, spatial capacity, pattern recognition versus verbal, communication skills versus, organizational ability. And so it really depends on precisely what the IQ, what the main makeup. Somebody could be really high on like verbal acuity and really low on organizational ability, executive function in that way. And so maybe they're like ADHD, right? So they could be, let's say, like the CEO of a major corporation, because they're, obsessive and have a lot of capacity at a higher level. They could be a big time sales professional, right? That would be an example where you'd have somebody whose organizational skills might not be great, but their verbal and their communication skills are really, really high. So it depends. Generally speaking, maybe they have a more difficult time lying simply because you wouldn't. It's really depends on the personality that we're dealing with as much, if not more than capacity, right? So it's a tough question to answer in a very, very general sense because it depends on why somebody has a lower IQ. The truth is that generally people with lower IQs don't see the value in lying. there's no utility in it. It just doesn't make any sense to do it. So they don't do it because it's like, why would I lie? Unless it's something really simple, like you can't have a cookie and they like sneak and grab a cookie, right? I mean, it would be the only reason to lie would be because I want something that someone else is saying I can't or shouldn't have. Otherwise, there's no utility in it. There's no reason to be manipulative. But I will also tell you that it depends largely on the type of person we're talking about. People on the spectrum, for example, some who have extraordinarily high IQs, don't have a really hard time lying. Really hard time. Like
It's like a moral code thing too.
Yeah, they have no. It's almost like they have no understanding of lying. Like and they feel guilty anytime that somebody doesn't know like the full extent of like who they are and what their intentions are. So it's almost like they feel like they're lying even though there's absolutely no intention whatsoever to mislead. So it's an interesting question, and I think in the end it has more to do, as much if not more to do with personality than it does necessarily with capacity.
Yeah.
But again, IQ is so complicated, and it depends very specifically on what the composition of the IQ score is. So hopefully that answers your question. But, deception often, the reason why it's so transparent is because all human beings, unless you have sociopathy, barring sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder, people hate lying, particularly in this kind of a setting. So I don't know how much time, Charlie, you spend in a courtroom, but you can imagine that anyone being called to testify, particularly in such a high profile courtroom, it would feel heavy anyway. And then to have to go in with the eyes of the world on you and lie. That's why. I mean, Tristan Morris looks like this for a reason. He's terrified.
Yeah.
Right? He's terrified because he's lying.
Yeah.
That's the
He's got
line.
something to hide. Yeah, that's why
he's got something to hide.
It's so much. Yeah. That's why the jurors, they keep coming back saying like all the like these hostile like like we knew. I mean, we watched a lot of the Buchanan testimony together. We were together, me and you, for that a lot of that.
Yes.
And I mean, it was just like crazy. I mean, you're just supposed to be, you're just supposed to be like the detective, like the the fact-finding detective that is impartial and non-biased, whatever.
Yeah.
And to come out, I mean, I would totally be like, whoa, okay. I mean, to answer and to just, no matter what, he would not fall like on Proctor. And if that wasn't the best representation of that blue wall, then what is, and that was such a great, like, I loved that one of the jurors that said that, like,
yeah, juror
we all
11.
saw that too. Yeah. And I love that. See, that just makes we all know, right? Like,
okay,
we are sure.
Yeah.
Sure that this is
well, Buchanan
really,
actually,
definitely,
you're right. I love Buchanan.
Factually innocent. I know
She is
me too.
factually
It was
innocent.
so great.
Yes,
It
he
was
is great. Though.
entertaining.
He's so great.
Yeah,
Yuri Buchanan is great.
Yeah, totally.
He really, really is. Because he
and
he loves
hers
Michael
too.
Proctor.
They were both
Well,
great.
Deborah,
Yeah,
very
no,
different.
I know.
Very
Yeah,
different,
she was
Deborah.
great because she was like, I don't want to hang out with her. I might like, I might want to like, I could see Buchanan like
Yuri's
where
funny.
Somebody like that would be funny, would be an entertaining.
He's funny.
These are a lot of the types of people that I spend a lot of time with in Boston. They really are like that. This really was so like, oh my God, if people could just like I knew immediately, like I could feel it. I was like, yeah, of course. It all made sense. It all made sense to me. Like, of course, like it was nothing. Like I could see how easily 10 people in a house, very close, family, all sort of intertwined. There's no way. I mean, they're starting to believe it to be fact now. That's why they think they can go on these shows and lie. I mean, the lies were so bad, it's a joke.
Well, the way I look at that, so, the other thing is there's a lot of alcohol in this family, in the Albert family. That's a huge part of it. And if you think about anybody who has addiction in their family, or if they know someone, if you know someone who's ever had a substance use disorder, it's the same to me in the sense that if I'm a substance abuser, lying is it's a part of what I have to do to continue to be able to do what I need to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's not that you believe your lies. It really isn't. It's just that you are unrelenting in your unwillingness to admit the truth. And you really won't admit it to yourself. You know you're lying, but the person you are unwilling to admit it to is you, even though you know you're lying. And the idea in your mind, and I was saying, Jackie, that it was Eric Gabriel that first taught me this.
Yeah, I heard
And
that. I
it was,
watched that.
yeah, right. Like, and the whole thing was nobody knows anything that you don't tell them. So
Yeah.
don't give it away.
There's
Don't,
a lot of that in
don't
raising
give it away.
children. A lot of that in raising children because, you know, if you keep, you know, unfortunately, you know, but like, yeah, that's the other.
Well, and that's what they're doing though. Like Brian Albert's, his thing is, if I just keep telling you that I'm a victim, we didn't do it, right? Of course, John didn't come into the house, that eventually, you know, we'll start to believe him. I mean, I think that's it, right? And the reality is that you just can't get around why. This is exactly the point. Why is Tristan Morris about to like poop himself in this video?
I don't
like
know.
If he has nothing to hide, if this man has nothing to hide,
Right.
why is this happening?
Right.
So I just want to point this out before I continue this. MJ sends $9.99 and says that Jeep mystery came out in Yuri's testimony. So this is interesting. Higgins told the feds he wouldn't be able to see the body because of the pile of snow Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting, MJ. Okay, so I think what MJ is saying here, and that's interesting because I just saw this today, actually. And there are other cops. So I went back and I listened to all the cops. I mean, Tully in its entirety, Buchanan's first trial, Lank, all of them, all of the cops. And there's one of them, I forget who off the top of my head, is talking about the piles of snow on the side, right? Because for them, remember, the taillight has to reveal itself, right, over the course of the entire month of February, right? Because it rains, then it gets cold again, then it rains, right? You know, the whole thing. This is why, you know, Chief Berkowitz is driving past and he sees a giant piece of taillight, right? It just keeps revealing itself. So, but there was a lot of discussion about this giant snowbank. So that's really interesting. I think what MJ you're saying is that he used the snowplow to try to make a wall so it would be a reason why you couldn't or wouldn't have seen the body. I think that's what he's trying to say there. Maybe. I mean, maybe. That feels like, I don't know. I mean, I'm just not sure if Brian Higgins at that moment had the capacity to do that, to think that through. Maybe, but it feels to me like he was just in a panic.
Yeah. And if you talk to like any plow driver in the world or tell them this story, they all immediately say there's absolutely no way that they wouldn't see a body. They are like
yes, I've heard
for that. They are, you know what I mean? It's like,
yes, I have heard that.
That's a huge, like, to hear that over and over from everybody, it's like huge.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm just making sure. I want to make sure. Yes. So somebody else, Sandy, sends $1.99 and says Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday is January 29th. And you know who else's birthday is January 29th, Sandy? Jackie Benigno. My sister's birthday is January 29th.
Yes.
So I will never forget Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday as long as I live. I will always know that is Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday.
Yes. A special day now.
Always know.
Books. I feel I feel very connected to John O'Keefe because of that. Birthdays have always been a thing for me. And I feel like a huge part of why that matters is I literally feel like connected. I don't know. I can't explain it. Maybe, you know, there's someone better out there to do that for me. But, you know, not only that, it was my 40th birthday. So there's, you know, it was like it was a bigger one. Remembering one. I certainly remember the weather.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So,
yes.
Yeah. You know, so it was definitely, me and
Brian Albert Jr. Yes.
Like
Little Brian.
Looks like Brian Albert and our parents were doing the same thing at the same time.
Same time. That's right.
Yeah.
That's kind of shady to think about, but
I know.
So legal onlooker sends $9.99 and says, what about Hank? This is a great question. I'm so glad you asked this question. So what about Hank in the DA's office? They can't possibly believe that Karen Read is guilty, right? What's their motivation following orders? Watching these interviews is so disturbing. Applying Sergio Denardo's techniques, lies. Yeah, Sergio's amazing. He's like the greatest ever.
He is.
He's just so good at what he does.
I'm glad he's getting
so good at what he does.
So much more, like,
Oh, thank God
from here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank God for him. But yeah, and okay, so the short answer is, of course, Lally absolutely knows that she didn't do it.
Yeah.
Morrissey at this point absolutely knows she didn't do it. But I'm not sure if he started out that way. I think Michael Morrissey started out like at the time in August of 23 when he gives that statement, that absurd statement about Karen Read, about how Colin wasn't at 34 Fairview when John and Karen. If you haven't heard Michael Morrissey's statement, you should Google that right away because it's just it's unbelievable.
No, I can't even. I want
horrid.
I say like the big push that I have for this now is and I've always said this, but this is huge. Everybody needs to go out and vote for your local DA. Get to know them, like treat it like it is the president. Like
for your community,
it is so important, and at least like know who these people are, and like God, it's really sad how many people like I don't even think I'm connected to that even would vote for something like that, and that's not every huge thing.
So not every state gets to vote for that appointment.
Well,
so
we do. So.
I know. So you got Massachusetts, they do, which is thank goodness because I think he comes up next year. But so okay. So legal onlooker, this is a really important question, and I think it depends on who you ask. Some people believe that Brian Albert has you've heard Sean McDonough say he has the black book. In other words, that he keeps tabs on officials that he's done favors for. Maybe he has done favors for Morrissey, so Albert has something on Morrissey, and therefore he's working overtime to try to help support the McAlbert family. There's some truth to that because it was Julie Albert who wrote that statement that he read in August of 2023. And remember, Chris Albert is involved in local politics now, right? He becomes a select board member so that he can oversee the local police department. That is why he does that. We find that out during his testimony where he loses his mind when he's asked that very specific question. I mean, really loses it. He's the worst liar, like next to Jen McCabe also. So the short answer is I think it's more of like the blue wall. These folks are just doubling down. And I think originally they believed that Karen Read was guilty. And that's the reason why they planted taillight. I mean, certainly that's why Brian Tully, Michael Proctor, all those guys from Morrissey's office, they believed she was guilty. I still think they do. I still think most of those cops believe that she is guilty.
Yep.
Wholeheartedly.
Yep.
But I don't know. I think Adam Lally knows better. I think he knows she's not. And the reason I think Lally knows she's not is because of the way he leads all of these witnesses. He leads them right at the moments where we know that if he kept going down a certain road, that witness would disclose something that would get them in trouble. Lally shifts right at that moment every time. That makes sense.
Yes.
So it's like rather than them incriminating themselves, he walks them up to that line and then shifts away from that top every single time. It's absolutely wild.
Yeah.
So I think he knows. Hank is a different question. I don't think so. I think the directive there was Michael Morrissey at this moment doesn't care if she's guilty or innocent. He just became obsessed with winning, and he hired Hank Brennan to win. That's what happened. They hired
they want to win.
wanted to win.
Yeah. What do you think? Well, I mean, come on. You think? I mean, I don't know. Honestly,
I think the judge was handpicked by Michael Morrissey. That I am also very sure of.
Right. That's why you don't need 50 million corrupt people, Brian Albert. You just need
right.
The DA in your pocket, maybe. I don't know. Or
you need the minion meeting.
Well, no, I mean, I'm saying in a different circumstance, it really could just be that. It's just really, it's like that statement. It's like he said that to try to put it in people's heads that would be the case. And nothing gets me more mad that everybody thinks that this big conspiracy must mean that 50 people are. It's like, that's crazy, dude. 50 people are not in on it. That's just, that's the same type of thinking that those type of people would have, that would believe that she is guilty.
Well, that's why he want that. Exactly. People that are not really watching this case. And if you're not really familiar with the evidence, you don't really know the details of this case, because there's so many details, and the devil is in the details.
Absolutely.
If you are just going to do an obtuse overlay, if you're going to be well, the story is about a drunk woman who probably killed her boyfriend and a bunch of cops who are all corrupt, that is just not really the story, right? That's not really the story. There's really two groups of people, right? There's the people in the house who I think are just unintentionally murdered a man who is also a police officer. And then there are the cops that are working for the Massachusetts DA's office who are just dumb and believe wholeheartedly that these people in this house couldn't possibly kill John.
Would never do that. And she
would never have done it.
And
so she did it.
And he was a cop, and they want to,
they wanted to, and just like Proctor says,
yeah.
All the powers that be want answers.
He's
actually,
he's telling the truth, and that's why
about that.
No, but right. I mean, I think he planted evidence. But I think he did it because he
thought she's guilty.
To make it easier for
Right. And he tells us that in his text. He says, there's not enough evidence. Within hours, he tells that to us with his text messages. There's another animal we're not going to be able to prove, right? So we know that he has front of mind day one, hours into the investigation. Karen Reed's going to pay. All the powers that be want answers immediately. She's a horrible, CUNT nutbag who killed her boyfriend because, in a rage, he was a cop. And so they were like, we're going to get her because she killed a cop, one of ours, and he was a good guy. And it was that obtuse, they just were that stupid, right? I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but they just did not. And because it wasn't so much that, I don't think it was that Michael Proctor didn't felt it was there's no way Brian Albert would have done this. And here's the other thing that really screwed Karen Reed. This was the other thing. And this was, I think, Brian Albert's doing also. This whole discussion about him being left to die is just not what happened, right? Nobody was left to die. John O'Keefe was dead within 15 minutes. So nobody was left to die in the cold. So we can all just take the words left to die is absurd. So nobody did that, though, not Karen and not people in the house. And I think that changes the calculation, because everybody is saying, well, there's no way that a person like Brian Albert would just leave a man to die outside. You're right. He didn't. That's exactly right. He didn't leave a man to die outside. That man was dead.
He was dead, and they put him outside.
Right. They put a dead man outside. And had it been summertime, everybody would have seen he was dead, because it was clear as day he was dead. But it was cold out, and so nobody could discern whether or not it was a dead body or a man with hypothermia.
Right.
And because of this rule about freezing cold and hypothermia, they had to try to warm him up before they could pronounce him dead. That's what happened. And it saved their asses, and that's what the Google search was all about. That's why Jen is home Googling how long to die in the cold, right?
Right.
That's the whole
That
purpose.
would make sense. Yeah, because I always wondered that too, because I believe that Karen with I've been wondering a lot about that text, and I feel like
The
because
Google search?
yeah,
That's
about the
what it
Google
was
search.
about.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Because that would make the most sense to me, because Karen she says that
No.
she didn't ask her to make the search.
She
So we
didn't.
know that, because it could make there is
100%.
right. So she didn't. So we know she didn't, because I believe Karen, right? That's where we live in a world where this woman is telling us the truth and everyone else is lying. That's what I
Jen
believe.
McCabe Googled "House Long to Die in the Cold,"
Yes.
and the reason she Googled it was because they were trying to figure out what is going to be, like, what are they going to say? What's going to be the story?
The time of death, maybe.
The story. What's going to be the story?
Yeah.
Right. And here's the thing that
makes
Brian
sense.
Albert.
Yeah.
So Brian Albert and
that
Brian
really-
Higgins would have known
never
that.
dawned on me like that.
Right. So they would have known.
Okay.
Here's the thing. These two men, and this is why Brian Albert was in charge of the cleanup. These two guys knew that a body in the cold weather, in Massachusetts, if it's found outside, this is why they put him outside. Because if you find a person outside, even if they are very, very dead, it would appear to the first responders that he had hypothermia. And because if a body is frozen, if the body is found frozen on a scene, there's a law, a rule across the board with first responders that they all would know. You are not allowed to call that person dead until they get to the hospital. So they would have known 100%. Brian Albert knew if we put him outside, it'll look like he fell. We'll say he never came into the house, and they'll just assume that he'll die from hypothermia because he slipped and fell, and then he died from hypothermia. That was the plan. That's why she was Googling "House Long to Die in the Cold." Like, what time should we put him outside? Right? That was the question. What time should we put John O'Keefe outside? How long is it going to take for him to die out there? Should we put him out at 2:30? Should we put him out at 3? Should we put him outside at 4:30? Should we put him outside at 5 o'clock? Right?
Okay.
How long would it take for him to die in the cold?
Okay.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how long is it going to take for him to be outside and be dead? That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to figure out, like, how long would it take for a body to freeze?
Because I think
that was the plan.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it worked. And it worked because the freaking medical examiner, kind of want to kill her, to be fair. I kind of do, because I feel like this is a lot her fault. I think she knew she didn't. Yeah. Yes. I feel like Scorty Bello knew she wasn't sure. That's why she was unrelenting about the undetermined designation, but she split the baby. That was scary, right? What was that?
Wild.
Was that like the fire alarm?
I don't know what that is. It's my daughter's. Sorry.
Okay. Nothing serious. Okay. I thought that was like the fire department was coming. That would have been funny. Yeah, would have.
That's called,
yes. It would have.
Gallagher maybe will come. I don't know. Who are we gonna get? Oh, snow blowers.
Yes, that's funny. The snow blowers. He thought he was ingenious with that. But yes, just summing that up, that's the whole reason why they were Googling "House Long to Die in the Cold," because the idea was it'll look like he froze to death because he slipped and fell, and that's or he was hit by the plow. Somebody else said this. I mean, I just saw it. I pulled it up a minute ago. Yeah, I mean, one of the two big oversights, right? The vomit on the front. So another reason why we know he was fighting. He had vomit on the front of his clothing, and there was no blood where they found him, right? So number one, how would he have, if he just fell back, you don't vomit forward, right? So it's not possible to project. That's how people die often from alcohol overdoses, is they choke on their own vomit, right? Because they're drunk. But he didn't. He vomited forward. The kind of vomiting that you might do. I don't know, if you were drunk and you got into a fist fight, that kind of thing. So there's that. But then also there was no blood under his head. And by the way, part of the 911 call, the 911 dispatcher asks her about that. And that's one of the highlights of Jen McCabe's obscene 911 call, where she actually responds in gibberish. It is like, and then she says CPR. And you're like, that was intentional gibberish. Like, wow. Okay.
Right.
That was like, that's like, if you haven't listened, you have to go back. 911 call.
I'll go back. Yeah.
The 911 call is so incriminating. It is such consciousness of guilt evidence.
There's a
It's
man
wild.
passed out in the snow.
No, but that's the problem. She actually,
Man. Oh God.
So not only is
Not
there a man
cop.
though, she says it 3 times. No, you have no. She also she says that she uses formal police language.
She's like this. Yeah, she uses formal police language, and she makes it. She's like, yeah, he's dead. Like she tries to be like,
no,
like, but he's dead.
She twice tells them that he's dead. She doesn't say it. She twice tells them.
Yeah, he's gone. I think he's gone. I think he's gone.
She says, I think he's gone.
Yeah.
And then, no, wait, I have to think about this. She says it twice, and she's insisting twice that he's dead.
Yeah, and she's saying it like she doesn't want anyone else to hear it.
Right.
And it's like,
but he's dead.
It's so stupid. I mean, it's so obvious.
Why would you think about this? Why would you ever
These
say
people
that?
need to go to jail?
Why would you
Higgins?
ever say that? Why would you ever say that if you would never, ever, ever, ever say
that
you thought someone was dead, that you had not gone near the body, you were the one that's told if you didn't know that a man who you were just partying with a few hours ago was dead, was on the lawn, and you just find him laying there, you're going to think he's drunk. You're not going to think he's dead unless you know he's dead.
Yeah, exactly.
She knows he's dead.
No,
100%.
and she says it like she wants to help them out, but doesn't want to like freak out the people around her. Like doesn't want Karen to hear her say he's definitely dead, because maybe she might be like, "How would you know that?" Or she would say something. I mean, I don't know. Like to what you're saying exactly. It's so so incriminating. I mean, all of it.
It's very incriminating. She's a
From
very
the moment that she says one line. It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't show any urgency either. Like in the beginning, if she says a man is passed out in the snow, like sounds like a drunk guy.
She doesn't want.
Right now, you think he's dead. You're certain he's dead.
That's why there's no urgency, Jackie. That's why she doesn't tell them. That's why she doesn't. That's why she doesn't say there's a cop, because she doesn't want them to come, because he's dead. There is no urgency. There's no urgency.
I wish I knew.
He's dead.
I want to know what happened more than anything else in the world that I wish I could know.
I'm pretty sure about what happened.
I
just
spent
don't
my
know the
birthday
details
with those people.
I just want to know like
that house.
the details. That's it. I want to know the details. So
that's it.
Lisa Newman sends $5 and says the interviews with the family and the friends, especially that John Jackson, was a pull your hair out frustrating. Absolutely. And maybe that's true, Lisa. Karen knew the O'Keefes would go against John's wishes. I mean, that's, to me, like, that's the crazy oversight. Like, this was your brother's girlfriend, and I think Paul rationalizes that. He actually, I think, has the wherewithal to realize that, but he rationalizes it saying, well, they were at the end of their relationship. It's like, so let me get this straight. You think your brother would be happy that you spent the last 3 years of your life trying to put the girl he was living with, who he basically was raising his children with at that time for 2 years? You think that he would want you to be trying to put her in prison?
Yeah.
Pretty sure your brother wouldn't want that. Right? But they don't see that.
Down. Yeah, it's so weird. It's all so weird. It is.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
Are we going to finish watching this?
So let's finish it. Let's finish it. We are. I'm just I want to make sure I get everybody's
get that.
chats and stickers in. So let's finish. Let's watch.
Or let's just get them on.
2012, yes.
All right, let me do this.
It's not Dr. Dan Wolf. I mean, I'm just saying.
Hold on, sis.
Yeah, no, I guess.
Here we go.
I want to hear it.
And so when you left your apartment in Easton to drive to 34 Fairview in Ken, was it snowing at that point?
It was.
Hold on 1 second. Ms. Giannetti, thank you. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry. So when you were driving from Easton to Canton, it was snowing. Do you recall how much snow had come down at that point?
I don't recall.
And what, if anything, do you recall about
What,
some
if
of the snow
anything?
that was on the ground in relation to how you drove from Easton?
Somebody said it earlier.
I was very
Mr. What, if
cautious. I was
anything?
10-2 the whole time.
And when you arrived at 34 Fairview, where did you park?
I don't remember.
Do you recall whether you parked on the street or the driveway? Or?
No, I don't know.
And when you arrived,
I don't know.
if anything, did you communicate to Kate?
I just told her I was here.
Was that through a text or a call? Did you know?
Text, it would be.
You pull up at some point, park somewhere, text her your text, correct?
Yes,
And at some point, she comes out of the house. Is that correct?
Look at him.
correct.
Did you ever get out of the car or go up to the house or go inside the house or anything like that?
No, I did not.
And how much time
That's a
was it
lie.
between the time that you texted her that she was here to the time that she came out?
I don't remember.
Mhm.
Was it a long time or anything like that?
No, it wasn't.
Come on, bro.
And when she comes out, do you recall sort of where within the front of the house she came out?
No, I don't remember.
Nope.
You're
No
familiar with
idea.
34 Fairview, though, correct?
I am.
There's a couple of different doors on the front of the house. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But you don't recall specifically which door she came out of?
No, I do not.
And when she came out, she came over to the car, correct?
Correct.
She gets in. Which part of the car did she get in?
Passenger.
How do you know?
Front seat passenger.
And at some point, you're leaving from 34 Fairview and you're going back to Easton, correct?
Correct.
Was there any sort of delay or any sort of long period of time that you were in the car in front of the house after Caitlin gets in the car?
No,
So essentially, she gets in and you pull away.
correct.
And when you pull away from the house, where do you recall which direction you went into to go back?
I went up Fairview Road.
And so up Fairview Road would be sort of heading towards Chaps. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so as you're going by the house, which side of the vehicle would have been facing the house? Either the driver's side of the vehicle or the passenger side?
Can you repeat that?
As you're going by the property at 34 Fairview Road,
Yeah.
which side of the Jeep that you were driving was facing 34 Fairview Road? Was
The
it
left.
your side or her side?
My side would be facing the street. If I'm coming down, my side would be facing the left side.
And what I'm asking is when you're driving away.
Away, yes, the passenger side would be facing her house.
And as you were coming there, would it be the driver's side or your side that was facing?
So weird.
If you recall which way you came.
I don't recall.
But as you were leaving the house, Caitlin's side or the passenger side would be facing the house, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the snow that's coming down as you're driving away, what, if anything, did you have to do with regard, or what, if anything, did you do with regards to the vehicle? Did you turn anything on or anything as you were driving?
No, I did not.
So did you have a defroster on?
Yes,
And did you have windshield wipers on?
correct.
So the snow was coming down at least at a pace that you had the windshield wipers on, correct?
Yes.
And during that drive, specifically on Fairview Road, but at any point during your drive to Fairview and from Fairview, do you recall anything as far as how the roads work, were they treated, did you see plows out, anything like that?
I don't recall.
Historic blizzard. Don't recall.
Yep.
Now, as far as when Caitlin gets into
Doesn't remember anything.
What's happening?
No.
She gets in the car, is it fair to say you guys haven't seen each other for a couple hours?
Yeah, I think
Does he just go
StreamYard
on to-
just I think it just hates when the both of us are operating at the same time for some reason. What did you ask? You asked a question. Did he just go?
Does he just go on this whole time, not recalling anything at all?
Absolutely nothing. Yes. And then nothing. And then Yannetti does the cross. And Yannetti is able, does the same thing, but Yannetti is kind of able to get more out of him because Yannetti kind of tricks him a little bit. So he's able to kind of get him to admit to some stuff. But yeah, it's like he sat with Brian Albert and Brian Albert said, just say, I don't know, whenever they ask you a question about what time something happened. And so he just says, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know. And it's like he's just waiting for a question so that he can answer. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's like,
is so weird.
It's really weird.
It is really weird. Like, why wouldn't he just answer the questions?
Right. Correct. Why wouldn't he just answer the questions?
Is it just that he's scared because it's a big, I mean, nobody even remembers this guy, dude. It wasn't even.
Well, I don't think it's that. I think he is.
Yeah, it can't be that.
Whatever information this man has in his head, he is terrified that he's going to be asked about. Yep. Yeah, this is the definition of consciousness of guilt. This is what Paul O'Keefe is blaming or is accusing Karen Reed. It's why he, like, when he says, "Oh, we knew Karen was guilty because she left the house at One Meadows in a snowstorm to drive back to her parents' house after saying she wanted to see Kaylee and Patrick. That's his belief, by the way. That's not me being,
That
not kidding.
no, I think I remember hearing
That's his belief. So it's like, that's consciousness of guilt, though. It's like he has knowledge. Tristan has knowledge of guilt, and he's so afraid that he's either going to like accidentally spill it or be asked a question that.
Yeah. So he's just saying, I don't. Yeah.
Yes. He's
gonna
sitting there,
right.
like scared that he's going to say something the wrong way. He's going to say the wrong thing. Almost like Devers in a way, but not, right?
Devers was a little bit more like, I'm just going to just pull this, like she just pulled the scaredy cat card by taking back any, saying that it was that false memory, whatever that was.
She tried. Somebody gave her.
She tried. I mean, how dumb could you be to not realize that you being like that for no reason at all is really going to look bad? Like, what is wrong with these people, man? I don't get it.
You know why though? I don't. In Devers' case, I think she didn't really have I mean, she tells us, right? My life depends on what I say right now on this stand.
Yeah.
As she's telling us about the conversation with Boston. I mean,
I know she was terrible.
The worst liar ever. Yes. So Lazy Alice sends 5 and says, sorry, how can anyone think that she did it after watching the trial is what I meant. And I wanted to just answer this question again, because we were just talking about it, right?
It's crazy.
The answer is, if you start out with a belief, like if I started out and the belief was like, I don't know, I can't even think of something, but like, I don't know, Karen Reed is, like a horrible person and whatever. If I start out with some very hard and fast idea in my mind, that is not true, but that's the idea, and that's like the silver star, then what happens is every other bit of information gets evaluated through that. Right. And anything that doesn't comport with that, anything that doesn't match that original belief, I just find a way around. Like, one thing you hear a lot from John Jackson and from the family or from Paul are things like, oh, she was rich, so she can pay the defense, or like she's paying off, the supporters, or she paid Turtle Boy.
Yeah, right.
You hear them a lot with that.
So stupid. No, they did not.
Well, not only that, but
that's
the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth was who paid off people.
Mr.
They
Blue
paid
Man?
$400,000 to Judd Welcher. Are you nuts? Have you lost? You know what I mean? They paid Hank Brennan $2 million.
That's never gonna happen again. Well, at least Hank did he worked hard. He basically did that whole thing on his back, but
stupidly though. I mean, that's
it's
the
like
whole
a
point.
dumbass. I'm not trying to, but I'm just saying. At least he he worked. I'm not.
No. I mean, no, they got something for their money, but they could have just not paid him and given the money to Adam Lally, because guess what? Adam Lally got 8 people to agree.
Yeah, got 8 people to think she did it, dude.
Right. 8 people.
Put that on his. That's like that. That is that. I hope that silver lining is there. I hope he gets the F.
Oh, I know.
From
Adam Lally.
Get out and use that.
Yes. He definitely has wearing that like a silver star.
Yeah, because Hank thought that not calling, I don't need to call Brian now. I don't need to call these people. No,
he thought he was smarter. He was being more strategic.
Yep. And no, Lally had it. He's bringing Tristan and
absolutely 68 people.
And the Uber driver and the lawn cutter. It's like,
who cares? Just everybody just tell everything, and then nobody will be able to tell which way is up. Right.
Yeah,
and like who cares? Like lies from the truth, whatever. Who cares?
And then those people probably started, which you're not supposed to do, like guilty until proven innocent, which you're not supposed to do. But like you said, they probably started, like Paula said, that she in the beginning was like, oh, look at this. She doesn't look sad. She doesn't look. She's right. I never looked at it like that, but yeah, she doesn't. She didn't. I watch all these cases where you see them sitting at the bench, like. Sad, they have emotion. I mean, Karen Reed looks like a lawyer, one of the lawyers, like
but she doesn't look like a victim,
right? But I mean, we've graduated to this now. Don't get me wrong. I mean, she's earned,
but from their perspective,
right? But from their perspective, right? So yeah, so of course, they all started. I mean, at least one of them is admitting they started off like that.
So, a lot of them admitted that.
I'm sure,
a lot of them admitted
exactly. That. And so the point, so when you have all these people starting out with that mindset, there you go. And
she's
Lally,
probably guilty.
He wasn't that bad, and he wasn't Hank shouldn't have acted like a defense attorney. he was like attacking these witnesses, and it really like it resonated with the jury. Like, what is this guy doing?
You mean Hank Brennan's award-winning personality might have lost him the case?
Yes.
Oh, what
And
a
the
surprise.
And that
I mean, he is just the most fundamentally unlikable human being the world has ever known. And that's what it was. I mean, he's just not a
he
likable
really
person.
is. Right. I mean, you're going up against literally like a trio of
Charmers.
the most likable
Nice,
people.
kind.
Like if you had if only like my dream would be to have like a 1-hour conversation with those three men. Like,
right.
Yeah. I would really, it really is like, imagine being alone in a room, like just the charm and just like the things you could learn, and it would be fascinating. But sitting in a room with like Bev and Lally and Hank, I really don't even I wouldn't do that if I was given the opportunity. I swear to you, like, just because of, one might think I would take that opportunity with my interest in the case. I'm telling you, it sounds like like, you know what I mean?
Of course. Yes, of course. Well, I mean, this is the problem though, right? It's not even like there's just dishonesty that's coming from them. I mean, that's the other thing. Like one of the things that I really loved Alessi when he was interviewed in one of the recent interviews, like, remember how there was a moment with Dr. Russell where like Hank is grilling her about the ride over with Alessi from the hotel or from somewhere. I think because she ended up having to stay again to do another recross with Brennan. And so she ends up taking like the Uber or whatever back to the courtroom with Alessi. And one of the things that she ends up telling Hank Brennan that Alessi says is just tell the truth. And she says it. She ends up saying on the stand that Alessi you know what Alessi told me? He told me just to tell the truth. And I guarantee you that Hank Brennan is not having that conversation with Brian Tully to the right of every witness. By the way, every witness was prepped with Brian Tully sitting there.
Yep.
You want to talk about witness intimidation? You tell me that having Brian Tully sitting next to that, what's the first guy? Nuttall? You think that Nuttall doesn't feel intimidated by Brian Tully?
Yeah, I know. Look at that guy.
God.
Yeah. Totally. Absolutely.
Right? You want to know why all of a sudden I hit him? I don't know why. Jeez, I don't know. You think because Brian Tully's sitting next to me, threatening me?
Another person who probably believes wholeheartedly that she did it.
Absolutely.
And there you go. I mean, it's just so easy for this to happen. Actually, Brian Albert, you don't need 50 people to murder, to know to be in the room, to know exactly what's going on. And it's like, dude, it doesn't work that way. You
just need a corrupt DA, really.
Yeah, it's corruption. Exactly. Someone that's,
a corrupt DA and a bunch of like a culture within the Massachusetts State Police that is just so horrific and built on ignorance and like arrogant, all the worst things you could say about cops.
Because all this was a bunch of cops going out on a night off, and because it was
that's true too. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Cops hanging out. That's all it is. A bunch of cops hanging out. One ends up dead on another one's lawn. Here we go.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So this is interesting. Honey 2800 sends 5 and asks, I wonder if the feds offer Higgy a good plea deal. The first one to the plea often gets the best offer. That's a fact. Might he jump shit first? So here's something else that I just learned. And I guess this is in the feds information. This is part of why Morrissey was on the witness list, because, it was Michael Morrissey that told Brian Higgins and Brian Albert to destroy their phones the day before the defense motion was going to be granted to seize the phones. So, and we found that out because it was Brian Higgins who told the feds. He signed like a proffer agreement with the feds, and that was one of the things in the agreement. So Brian Higgins did already like sign and make a deal with the feds that he would tell them incriminating things as to not get in trouble. But as far as we know so far, the only thing that has come of that are those the fact that they had destroyed their phones. So that's how we found that out, though.
Okay.
Was through the feds. That was part of the feds like dump of information.
A lot of stuff we found out through the feds. was like
I know,
3,000 pages or something crazy.
but the point is though that was Higgins.
Yeah.
That was in the, and it's funny that didn't come out in the first trial, but
I said the same thing to you. I was like, because I believe that the murderers were, Higgins, I think has a hand in actually like the killing.
Right.
Whether it was the fight or whatever. So I think that might be the best way to go, because at this point, it might be the way to get him out as being the one with the most culpability, maybe. I don't know. But it is a little bit, I wonder if they're shaking in their boots because, Higgy isn't anywhere to be found. He's not stupid.
Yeah.
He's not running. He's smart enough to go hibernate. Does anyone know where this dude is? Like, where is he?
Yeah. Does somebody know?
People
So
I
know a couple of things. So Mark Decker sends $10 and says, "What do you make of Brian Higgins cutting off communication from the others following the interview with the FBI? The implications vary depending upon who was actually involved in the altercation." And thank you, Mark, for your support. I think you're right. Here's what I know. I know that Kevin Albert sent a text message to Brian Higgins, basically saying, you're freaking everybody out by cutting off communication. Like, you're making everybody nervous. Now, I don't remember. Somebody else in the chat might know the exact phrasing of that text message, but there is a text message somewhere, and I'm almost positive it's from Kevin Albert, and it says something about you're making everybody nervous for cutting off communication. So, but here's the thing. What would Brian, okay, let's say that he does sign a plea. Let's say that Brian Higgins is the one that kills John. What is the crime that Brian Albert, in all likelihood, the cover up, right? Exactly. The cover up is Brian Albert's, right? Yeah. But he did that for Brian Higgins. So I think that he had
to. It was in his house. I mean, he did it because he would have been incriminated. Yeah, his dog. I mean, he did it because he had to. I mean, I understand that. Like, what was he going to do right then? Like, what were they? I mean, are these the type of guys that are going to call call the 911? I mean, and be like report this? No. No matter what happened. I don't know.
If they were sober, you feel like if they were sober, they would have, because it's so obvious to me that they could have just both said, "What do you mean? John attacked us."
Yeah. Totally.
And they could have stood together and said it was, they would have believed them. Yeah, you had an ATF agent and a guy whose reputation.
That's a really good point, Sam. That's
and
a really good point.
To me, the only reason that I think they didn't do that is because they were drunk. Again, it's another reason that alcohol scared. They were scared. They got drunk.
Yeah.
Higgins was wasted. I mean, you see Higgins in the waterfall video. He's like wiping his face. I mean, he's wasted.
Yeah. I mean, also because there's, all these videos. I mean, that wouldn't, I don't think it wouldn't even have mattered because these people are in their pocket.
No, but he could have said
the surveillance video.
Yes, but even if they did, like, they could have been 100% honest. I went to John. I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to tell him that his girlfriend has been texting me, and he just started hitting me.
Okay.
So I hit him back.
Yeah.
Ryan was here. Albert, he saw it all.
Yeah.
Same thing. Colin and Caitlin, none of the kids were here. So they could lie about that the same way that they were anyway. And just the two of them take the fall and say, the dog, there was a fight. They could have just said everything that happened the way it happened, except that it was John who was the aggressor. But they were drinking. That is the only reason, sister, why I even have a question about what happened, is this question that Mark Decker is asking, which is, like, what would have been Brian Albert's culpability, and why would he have gone to such great lengths to take the fall for Brian Higgins? And the only other reason is because
they needed
the culture. Well, not only that,
the culture,
the culture, right? The blue wall, correct?
Absolutely.
The culture.
Yes, this wasn't just a person. If it was a non-cop that they had killed, this whole thing would have went down different.
Maybe that's true. Maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe. And I think they were thinking, all right, we could have put it on the plow driver, but truthfully, I think that they didn't even necessarily get any farther than that, because the idea was like, oh, we don't know what happened. We'll just say he didn't come in the house. That was the big tagline. It'll look like he just fell and then he just died in the snow. He died from hypothermia.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's exactly what
they couldn't have blamed it on the dog. How does that work?
A dog is
Dog
yeah, but
attacks and then he just, he falls.
a dog is your responsibility though. If you have a
That's what
German
I mean.
Shepherd, right?
But
So
still,
if Brian Albert would have been to blame though. The dog isn't to blame. Brian Albert, like if you send your dog
is
to
that
kill
true?
a person,
Do we know what?
yes, 100%
it
it's
is?
true. Yes.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
All right. Well,
yeah, a dog can be like a
interesting.
murder weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Especially that
Absolutely.
dog.
That's why he was culpable. The only culpability I think he had was the dog.
Yeah, it is.
I think I think by the time Brian Albert gets to the scene, John is dead.
It's me too. I'm starting to believe. I think that's now with all these interviews, and I think me too. I think that the reason why he's doing this, and he's like, because I believe that he thinks that because he didn't murder him. I don't think he was the murderer.
Right.
Right. If Higgins isn't there, regardless, if Higgins isn't there, John doesn't die. Period.
Okay, wait a minute, Michelle. I'm trying to read this. To me, Higgins appeared guilty because he felt like he should speak up. To me, Higgins appeared guilty because he felt like not defensively guilty. What does that mean? To me, Higgins appeared guilty because he felt like he should speak up. Not defensively guilty. I'm not sure I'm not sure what you mean by that. You'd have to explain that more. I'm not sure what you mean. Go ahead, sis. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was just thinking that maybe it was like he. I mean, I don't know because I think Higgins is the only one with motive. I mean, the motive, you know what I mean? So I'm looking at that a little bit differently. You know what I mean? But I'm not really sure. I think you're right. Yeah.
Okay. So Charlie Marinaro, right? Yeah. Marinaro asks, what's a proffer? A proffer is like exactly what people are saying. It's like a deal. Like, I will tell you what I know and you won't charge me. That's what it is. It just means exactly that. It's essentially like he ratted them out, but he did it. He admitted it so that he couldn't get into trouble. The thing is, I don't know what else he agreed to, right? I mean, it's, the defense would know the details of that agreement more than obviously, we don't know yet. And that never came into trial. I only know that because of Sean McDonough, who knows that because before all of us were involved, before like this first trial, McDonough was one of the first people that like knew about the case, like way back, because he's from Canton originally, went to Canton High School, and like he's a cop. He was a cop there, I think, in the very old days. Then he moved away. Now he lives in Florida, but he's got family there. So he was like right away, like talking to his family, and they were like, "Oh, did you hear about the cop that died on another cop's lawn?"
Yeah,
like the day after it happened. So he was like on top of the story much more quickly than the rest of us. I think that's how he used to talk to Karen personally a lot. Again, before, even Turtle Boy was involved. So I think, the defense knows the answer to exactly the extent of that agreement. Who knows? And so I like this. So Bella Brat for you sends $5 and says, I beg to differ, Sam. There's no way Brian Albert is covering for Brian Higgins. Something else happened. And that's, this is a great question. I've just like you have felt that way too. Except that he wouldn't be not culpable at all because of the dog. So the question that I would offer you is, what do you think do you think Colin, because I will also tell you, I do think Colin has some involvement, although I do not know how and why and what.
I do too. I mean, that I think that, but I think Colin and Brian. So maybe Colin's involvement is who Brian's covering for.
Absolutely.
They all have a little bit of culpability in the crime. So I think that's why, I don't question that too much. Either way, because there's enough there. I mean, at the guy's house, the dog, we all know he got attacked by a dog. That's been proved. I mean, to me, unless there's,
of course,
was there a bear that came out of hibernating?
No.
Crawled on him? I mean, come on, bro.
Also, Chloe wasn't on site. He was attacked by a dog. It was ridiculous.
I mean, that we know, right?
Right. We know. So, yes. 100%.
Basically,
we also know
combination of those three: Chloe, Higgins, and Colin Albert.
And we also know he did not die of hypothermia. He died from a coup contre coup, which means that he did fall back.
The fall.
The fall, and he died from a fall, but because of the fact that he broke the bottom of his skull, and that head, the big mark on his head, the gash is actually pretty high up. So it means that he would have had to have some kind of, that's why they think it was a stare, because it would have had to have been something that would have had a straight line to create that like edge, that line that we see in the back of his head. But it also had scrapes, right? So I had to have something that could have scraped, caused that absolute like gash, right? Like almost like a knife wound in the back of his head.
Yeah.
And caused scraping, but also it was the underside of his skull that shattered, and that's what killed him.
Yeah.
Because the brain swelled up and then collapsed in on itself. And that's how we know he died right away. That's how we know there was no leaving anybody out in the cold.
That's why this all happened, because it was probably a one shot. It probably freaked them out, and they're like, oh my God. And he either was done for, or like convulsions, or some sign to them that like
he tried to save.
He can't come back from this, right?
Oh no, he was dead right away. 15 minutes. Yeah. They knew,
or else they would have tried to save him, which is why
they did try.
So defensive, because they did. Right? They're like, we did. Bro.
They did.
That's what they're trying to say.
And honestly, some people think, and I've said this before, I think some people think Brian Higgins and Brian Albert are like evil. Like that there was like some big conspiracy that John had information about them, about a sex ring and like prostitutes. And my thing is like, if you wanted to kill John O'Keefe because of that, this is not the way
to do it. Yeah, no.
You don't go about it this way,
was
right?
Not a premeditated.
This was not intentional. This was a complete
accident.
It was an accident.
Well,
100%.
Maybe I don't know if I want to use the word accident, because if you are trying to insinuate a fight, a physical fight, come on, we all know that that's a possibility if you start punching people in the face.
Yeah, but when
you're drunk, but yes, of course.
I think though, if we were to poll like all the men in the world who have ever been in a fight and drinking, they would also tell you that they're not.
I'm saying personally,
I'm going to kill you.
I don't like to call it an accident, because that's
not
I know
what you mean.
What an accident is. But
I agree with you.
Yeah, okay.
I agree. What I mean is there was no intent to murder.
Right. That's no, I mean, I think Higgins was looks like, like everybody, he's a Higgy bear, he's like,
Oh, he's a very sensitive guy. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, I don't think
Brian Albert is actually, I'm sure Brian Albert is funny. I mean, the way that he can say things that are ridiculous with such a straight face is like quite the skill.
That face. Yeah. No, I've been analyzing all that testimony.
I mean, it's funny. It's like
really
he says shit that is just like the cornhole thing. I swear to God, the fact that he said that with a straight face, like, come on, you think he doesn't think that's hilarious? Like that's his personality. His personality is to say something really mocking, but like say it with a straight face.
It's like the Never Cracker family.
Yes. And by the way, okay, I hope people have seen that with Chris, because if you haven't seen Chris Albert's testimony, you need to. It's hilarious. It's like it is a really funny testimony. It does. It's like they're a jokey family. That's kind of how they are, right? It's just that it's all fun and games until it's not, right? So I mean, Bella, Brad, for you, I completely agree that this is what you're asking about is the reason why I originally became convinced that Colin must have had an involvement, because I also had a very hard time believing that just the dog alone would be enough to not rat Brian Higgins out. I also think Brian Higgins wasn't sure Brian Albert wasn't going to rat him out. And that's the reason why Brian Higgins goes right to dispatch.
Yep.
There was cars, but he goes to check to see if he called it in.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's very sketch of the sentiment that Brian Higgins is taking a big risk by like not having anything to do with the Alberts. I agree with that. I think that's a big risk.
It is a big risk. It's sending an interesting message, but I think it's the right thing for him, because they're getting plummeted in the media. I mean, we're all like, look what's happening. I mean, they shouldn't have done that. So, I don't know. It is what it is. Sissy, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I gotta go too. But yes.
This guy's face, man. Hey, next time maybe we have Dr. Dan Wolf from ARCA instead. We can stare at the whole time.
Yes. No, I know, but Dan is just not as interesting. Love Dr. Dan, but
he's so gorgeous. He's so
not involved. He just wasn't involved with John's murder.
I know. But
so that's the problem.
Involved in Free and Karen Reed. So
that's right.
Him.
We love
all of you. And sister, what do we have to say? please like and subscribe my channel because we
Thanks,
love
sis.
you
That's
all
right.
and we appreciate this so much. And my sister really is the smartest, most amazing
Oh,
human on the
stop.
planet.
She's
No, but
ridiculous.
people read this.
Sissy
I
Bear.
read these, and I'm just saying she really is. So thank you so much.
Well,
Bye,
thank
sis. I'm gonna
you.
let you
Bye,
say
sis. Love
goodbye
you.
to
We'll talk
everybody.
soon.
Yes.
Bye. Okay, let's see here. Let me try to hold on. Remove my sissy bear. All right, let me see, Bella. So 100% Colin had something to do with it, right? Yes, Colin's knuckles were completely messed up. Yeah. So Bella, this is a great question. I actually was looking if anybody here, if you know whether or not there is a photo or some documented evidence that the sling that Brian Albert was in was factually, timeline wise, does that line up with the death of John O'Keefe? Because I've heard very mixed things. Also, Brian Albert has a long history of fighting, actually in like boxing, MMA. So if you know that for sure and you have some evidence of it, please let me know. Send it to me. Send it via email. I'll have my email up here in just a minute. I'll run it across the bottom because I've been trying to figure that out and it's not easy to track down. I've been out there looking. I'm sure there's maybe Reddit would have been. I did see some things, but again, none of it was definitive. A lot of speculation about whether or not that picture of Brian Albert with the black eye and in the sling, whether that was factually timeline wise around the same time or not. Yeah, because you're right. I mean, and Colin fought so often that the truth is the knuckles apparently, and thank you, Anne Ruby, so much for your super sticker. The knuckles apparently are the fastest healing place on a body. Now, I just learned that because of this case. So, I mean, if you guys think something different or know something different, let me know. So it's possible that, even up to a couple of weeks after this, Colin would have probably re-injured them. And the thing about Colin Albert is, I mean, this guy obviously fights. How many people do you know? I'm just throwing this out there. Think back to high school. All right. So collectively, there's 2,500 of us roughly, right? So how many of us have a friend who likes to fight a lot, right? Like if you had one friend that just seemed like they were fighting all the time, how many fights does a person get in their life? Physical altercations. I mean, Colin Albert, we already with our own eyes have 3 documented videos of Colin Albert in a fist fight before the kid is 16 years old. How many fights has this man been in? Right? How many fights has this guy been in? It's craziness. Z McCarthy sends $1.99 and says, just join the live. Love your insights and we love you. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, you guys, we're going to figure it out. I really believe collectively we are doing, we're getting it together. It's coming together. I mean, I think for me, and this, I've said it many, many, many times, for me, something about Dr. La Posada's testimony was a key piece of information that we just didn't have before. This whole nonsense about hypothermia. And I knew, I mean, sometimes your instincts, I just kept saying over and over, but there's no frostbite. There's no frostbite. It says that you can get frostbite in 30 minutes. There's no way he would have hypothermia without frostbite. He wasn't even wearing a jacket, right? But that's logic. I'm not the medical examiner. I'm thinking, well, maybe he did have frostbite. We just don't know it, right? So sometimes, we know more than we realize that we know. And like people in this chat today have been talking, the vomit on the front of the shirt, the blood, the lack of blood. I mean, I have actually heard over the last couple of years now, I don't know how many investigators from different walks of life saying that would have been the very first thing they would have looked for was blood evidence at the scene. And when it wasn't there, based on the gash in his head, they would have then immediately gone into the house. The house would have been like, I'm going right into the house, right? The fact that there is no blood and a gash of that magnitude and all the marks on John's arm, where's the blood, guys? Where's the blood? Can I ask? I know the answer, but I'm going to ask this anyway. How do you call yourself a detective, an investigator, and not ask that question and not not even think, where's the blood? Never even comes into their mind. If you listen, and I actually believe this, this is how obtuse, that's the best word I can come up with. Stupid is the other. How stupid do you have to be? If you are Yuri Buchanan and Michael Proctor, these two guys take one look at John, who, by the way, does not look like he was in a car accident, but they both say, oh, well, he had one shoe on. So it was the one shoe at the hospital, right? And Jen McCabe saying, Karen Reed said, could I have hit him? She didn't even say I hit him at that point. She didn't update her statement saying I hit him, the confession, until later. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, oh my God. Oh, he had one shoe on. That's it. I mean, no thought like, oh, maybe he was putting his shoes on and somebody in the house, they started fighting and then they threw him out into the snow. No thought like that. Just immediately he must have been hit by a car because Jen McCabe said, Karen asked, could I have hit him? I mean, it's just, right? And I will tell you the other thing I will say too, one of the details from Paul O'Keefe's interview, this is why looking back at all these interviews, all this testimony is just so important. A lot of you are asking, well, how can the O'Keefe family, based on everything we saw from this most recent trial, how can they not see Karen is guilty? Well, one of the things that, and I said this earlier, that Paul says, he says the Canton PD is who found the sneaker and the taillight. Well, if he believes that, I mean, think about what a distorted thought that is. But if he really believes that, that completely changes everything. I mean, if Paul O'Keefe believes that the Canton cops are the ones that found the taillight and the sneaker, and not the CERT team later on, 12 hours later, when Brian Tully arrives on the scene, there is such an enormous difference in how you would view everything else that happens in this case. Because, yeah, how is it even possible that the Canton cops could have found taillight at the scene if Karen Reed didn't do it? It's not possible, right? So I don't know, if that's something that Paul O'Keefe believes, then that gives you the answer to the question, why does the O'Keefe family believe that Karen Reed did this? There's the answer. And the problem with starting out, number one, deeply emotionally invested in the outcome, like deeply invested in Karen Reed being guilty. And number two, being so focused on how could she be guilty? Like if you're Paul O'Keefe, you started this trial, both of these trials, thinking she's guilty. So how can I make the evidence that I see match that, find its way into that box? And if it doesn't fit that box, I'm just going to throw it away. It's just going to become trash, and I'm going to find a way to make it trash however I have to. And that is the answer. I know it's not a satisfying answer, but it is the legitimate truth about how people are making something true that's not. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? Golden Fire, welcome. Thank you for being a member. We're really, really excited to have you. Michelle asked, never mind, take it back. The first time Higgins saw Karen in person since the death was probably when he was on the stand. I don't know what that looks like. Never mind, take that back. The first time Higgins saw Karen in person since the death. Oh, yes. Okay. I see what you're saying. You're referencing the kind of like the way he responds on the stand about John. Well, there's a lot there. So, like, my analysis of that moment, in particular in Higgins's testimony, and like his reaction, the defensive like response, or the fact that he gets so choked up about not being able to save him. I think that's, oh my God. There's a lot of reasons why, though, not just that response. There's a lot of reasons why I believe Higgins is directly involved and in large part holds himself responsible for this. I mean, a lot of reasons, and that's only one. So it's got to be like the totality of the evidence thing, right? And there are other things too. Like, for example, the fact that he doesn't respond to Karen 5 hours later. That was a huge red flag for me. Huge. Now, I went back and analyzed those 200 text messages multiple times, which was a bitch to do. It was brutal. Those 200 texts between the two of them. I mean, man, I went through those multiple times, word for word. It was not easy to do, but I'm glad I did because I learned a lot about Karen and I also learned a lot about Brian Higgins. And one of the things that's very clear to me from reading all of his text messages to Karen is that he liked her. He liked her. He did not just want to pursue a sexual relationship with her. He liked her. And he gets more clear about his feelings for her as time goes on. It sounds on the surface like he's saying he's indifferent, but it's not like that at all. In actuality, what he's saying is, I've always known I liked you. I really like you. I know we'd have fun together. You'd have fun with me, right? And he then also tells her that he's not going to pursue it. He's not going to go forward with her unless she's done with John, right? And so we know that the well is basically him saying, well, did you make a decision? I mean, this seems obvious. So I'm sorry if it seems redundant because it does feel obvious, but maybe it isn't obvious. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's obvious anymore. I just don't know what's obvious anymore. M4A now sends $5 and says repeatedly pulling away from a dog attack and being in a boxing match are probably two activities that could register as exactly. Okay. So I don't know if you know this, but I was asking that question. This is the question that I was asking. I was having like a whole exchange with somebody. I think this was probably you weren't there because I think this was on an email. Could have been in my head. It could have been an email. Could have been on a chat. But I was asking that very question. Does anybody know what information the Apple Health data is using to determine what flights of stairs? Are they using GPS or is that like biophysiological information? If it's biophysiological information, then absolutely having a fight, stumbling around, being attacked by a dog. To me, if it's based on physiological information, I think you're spot on. And that's exactly right. But I don't know. And we'd have to find that out. I don't know how much of it is GPS. Remember, right? The driving, just driving doesn't cause stairs. And we know that these devices, that the Apple Health data is pretty accurate a lot of the time. And I'm saying much higher than you might guess. Just off, based on common sense, my hunch would have been to say that it's like 60, 75% accurate, but it's not. It's much higher. It's a much higher accuracy rate than I would have ever anticipated. So, which is great. I mean, that's great for us. Cool that Apple Health data is pretty accurate, but very hard to make sense of if we're trying to say that, did John go up or downstairs? I don't see where he would have done that. I really don't. I really don't. I just don't see where he would have had time. I know that I originally, and I will also tell you, I originally believed that he went downstairs, but now I doubt it simply because we only have 84 feet. He only has so much time because, right, all phone interaction stops, 12:32 and change, right, I think. And it makes sense to me that Brian Higgins would have been waiting for him because of how eager Higgins is. I mean, this is think about it. The entire time that we know, or at least that I know, Brian Higgins. So from, New Year's Eve when Karen and John have that argument about Aruba to this incident, right? The entire time they have John and Brian Higgins do not have a ton of interaction. The only interaction that they have that we are very aware of is that whole exchange about coming for the Patriots Saturday playoff game, like 2 weeks before the incident, right? So to all of a sudden have Brian Higgins texting John, hey, are you coming? You coming or what? Or I forget exactly the words. Are you coming here? To me, like, that's a really strong indicator that Brian Higgins wants John. Hello, he's in the bar motioning, let's go, come on, you, me, let's go. Then he sends a follow-up text. Somebody also in the chat, and I meant to respond to this, somebody in the chat was saying earlier that they did John know he wanted to fight with them? And my sense is no. Now, I say that for two reasons. One, there's a really good video of the waterfall. I think it must be microdots, but it's not one of the ones you see all the time. It's like a little bit of an older video where they blow up John and, obviously, and Brian pointing to him, but they blow up John's reaction and he does that little dance. Like he takes a sip of his beer. It's very, very cute. He does this little dance after, like he's in like almost like the way that you might see a guy who's like ready to go to the after party. Like he gets kind of pumped up, laughs. Okay, let me go back. His reaction to Brian Higgins pointing at him and saying, "You, me, let's go." John's reaction to that, he acknowledges it with like a head nod, takes a drink of his beer, and then does this little dance, looks at the person next to him as if to say, "Did you just see that?" I do not get the sense that John had any idea that that was serious or that like it was a threat. It really doesn't seem that way at all. And if you believe what we've heard from Karen about that, he wanted to keep going. He wanted to keep drinking. And she was like, maybe it's good because he'll blow off some steam and that's always better for him. He's always happier when he gets to blow off more steam. So she didn't want to go to Brian Alberts, but she was ready to let him go in and maybe go in with him if he texted her and said, "Yeah, come on in." Right? I think that was my understanding is that's what the plan was. The plan was for John to join or for Karen to join. And that's why she was waiting for his text. And that's why she got so mad when the text didn't come. So, it's like the never ending story with this case. Golden Fire sends $10 and says, "You are my favorite commentator on this case. So glad I caught you live." And I thank you so, 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 so much. And I appreciate you and your support and welcome. I'm glad you caught me live too. Yeah. So, and just to bring you up to speed, I'm going to try to finish this off because I know it's getting super late now. I just want to show you guys a few more minutes and I know it's late, but I want you to see this guy. He is so freaking guilty. He's just so guilty. To me, this is just crazy. It's crazy. Why is this guy? This is a nobody. He's a nobody. Tristan Morris is no one. Why is he so scared? What does he know that we don't? And what is he so afraid that we're going to stumble upon? What question is he so worried about answering? That's the question that's in my mind as I'm watching this testimony going, what does Tristan know that we don't? And I mean, I can come up with some guesses, but so far, some people have suggested that the Jeep evidence, the weird Brian Higgins shade around the Jeep may have something to do with Tristan Morris and Caitlin's Jeep. Okay, maybe. Definitely possible, I suppose, because both Jeeps are a similar color, not the same kind of Jeep. One's like a Jeep Wrangler, I think, and the other is like a Jeep Cherokee. But okay, maybe to an onlooker, they're color similar, whatever. Then the other question is, to me, either that dog was shot on sight, which I doubt. I mean, that would be a pretty dramatic step to shoot your freaking dog. I just don't see it happening. The other would be that somebody must abscond. Someone in this family would have to take that dog off the premises. And then the question is, who would that have been? And the only person, it certainly wasn't Colin Albert. Like, I don't see Colin Albert taking the dog over to Julie and Chris's, right? So the only couple in this house that I could imagine would have taken the dog would have been Tristan and Caitlin. That's my guess. I don't know. So to me, maybe that's what he's hiding. And let's see if we can get a little bit more from him here before we go. And then I know it's getting late. So
Start talking.
Correct.
And so when you're talking, you're driving, she's in the passenger seat, is that correct?
That's correct.
And was she facing you while you were talking to her as you're
Yes.
running away?
all right, so now he's saying now he has already picked up Caitlin and will not, and for those of you that have not seen this, he will not tell us what time it was. He won't even approximate. Could be any time at all. Won't say. He doesn't know when. All he knows is his girlfriend, Caitlin, was at 34 Fairview and calls and texts him to come get her, and he does. That's all we know. And that's the end of his direct testimony.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
You've been dating Caitlin Albert for 7 to 8 years now.
Correct.
The two of you now live together.
Correct.
Are you still living in Easton?
Yes.
How long have you lived together for?
3 years.
When you first met her, where was she living?
Oh, am I frozen?
Canton.
Where in Canton?
34 Fairview.
She was living there with her parents at the time?
Correct.
Brian and Nicole Albert?
Yes.
You met her parents, Brian and Nicole Albert, several years ago, correct?
Correct.
You've met all of Caitlin's siblings as well?
Correct.
You've spent time at their house?
Yes.
You've spent holidays with them?
Yes.
And you've been over there on weekends, correct?
Yes.
It's fair to say that over the last 7 or 8 years, you've been with the Albert family quite a bit, correct?
Yes.
And you've also been with the McCabe family, correct?
Yes.
And even though you're not married, you consider yourself just about one of the family, correct?
Yes.
Since John OKeefe's death, you have continued associating with both the Alberts and the McCabe's, correct?
Yes.
Because you're still dating and living with Caitlin, correct?
That is correct.
And in June of 2022, a few months after John OKeefe's death, you went to Ned Devine's in Boston with many, many men in the family, correct?
Yes.
That includes the Alberts, correct?
Yes.
And that includes the McCabe's.
Yes.
Do you recall who was there that night?
No, I don't.
I showed you a photograph from that night. Did that refresh your memory?
Yes.
May I approach Ron?
Yes.
I placed a photograph before you. Take a look at that and look up at me when you're done.
Yes.
Does that refresh your memory about who was there that night?
It does.
Are you, by the way, how many people are in that photograph?
Do you want me to count?
With the court's permission.
Okay, go ahead and count. And after you count, let's mark this for identification, please.
Yes.
12. 12 people, including myself.
Okay, if I could have that marked for ID.
12, including myself.
You would agree with me, sir, that at that night at Ned Devine's in Boston.
All right. I just want to show you guys the picture that we're talking about so you can see the Ned Devine's picture in Boston. Here it is. This is the picture that we're talking about. So this is the one where they're all like making their fist, and the judge is not going to allow it. So I'm just going to, spoiler alert, tell you that this ends up being like a day or two before Karen Reed is either arraigned or her charges are upgraded. There's something big in terms of this case. And so the implication is that he's out with all of the Albert, all of the family, I guess, the extended Albert family and McCabe family to celebrate like a guy's night. Karen Reed being, arrested and charged is really what this is. So that's what this picture is about. That's what Yannetti is asking Tristan Morris about. And this to me is just not that important, but I wanted to make sure you understood what they're looking at. The more important detail of this testimony, and if you missed the beginning, it's very quick. I would go back and watch it. This guy is scared to death. He is as nervous as you've ever seen anyone who's ever taken the stand. And he refuses to stamp any time after at all. I mean, he won't even say what time he was at the waterfall at like 6 o'clock with Caitlin. He won't even tell you what time that happens. And I will tell you that I get the sense from him and Caitlin that maybe somebody told them to say like they're just bad with time. And so they don't want to say the wrong time, because that's kind of what Caitlin does too. She's a lot more composed. Let me tell you, a lot better of an actress. Tristan is, I mean, I don't even know what to call this. It's such a just disaster. But it's funny because Yannetti ends up pulling more information out of him. So let me just show you that quickly before we wrap here. It's just really interesting. It's like, what is going on with this guy? What is going on with Tristan Morris? That is my question. All right, let's see.
No.
You've never testified before any grand jury regarding this case, correct?
I haven't.
You've never testified previously in any hearing regarding this case, correct?
I haven't.
You were at 34 Fairview Road in Canton at 1:45 in the morning or about 1:45 on January 29th of 2022, correct?
I don't remember the time.
Was it wildly different than 1:45 in the morning, or was it somewhat close to that?
I'm not going to make up a time. I don't remember.
Was it 9 p.m. on the 28th?
I don't remember times.
So if I asked you if you were there to pick up your girlfriend Caitlin at 9 p.m. on January 28th, you couldn't say if that's true or false?
No, because I'm not making up the time.
Okay, so it could have been 9 p.m. that you were there, not 1:45 in the morning.
I didn't say that.
Well, you've just said that you can't rule out that it was actually 9 p.m. on the 28th, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Can you answer that? Did you say that?
I didn't say anything. I don't remember the time.
No, I understand.
So I'm not going to make up a time.
Hold on. Only one person can speak at a time.
I don't, it could have been later, it could have been early. I don't know a time.
Right, but it couldn't have been 9 p.m. on January 28th. Could it have been?
I don't know.
Wow.
Okay. What time were you at the waterfall?
I don't remember.
Were you at the waterfall?
Yes, it was.
On what date?
The 28th.
What is this?
Was it in the morning?
It was at nighttime.
Okay. What time did you leave the waterfall?
I don't remember.
Did you leave at 5 p.m.?
I don't remember.
So it could have been 5 p.m. that you left.
Could have been 5 in the morning. I don't know.
Will you testify that you were at 34 Fairview Road on January 29th after midnight?
I don't remember a time.
Okay. But you do remember being there, correct?
At the waterfall?
No, at 34 Fairview.
I remember picking my girlfriend up. Yes.
You do. You've testified to that, right? Today.
Yes.
And when you were there, you had an opportunity to see the front lawn to that property, did you not?
Yes.
You pulled into the driveway.
I don't remember where I pulled into.
Okay. Did you pull into any place when you got there?
I don't remember where I pulled into.
So you say you don't remember where you pulled into. That wasn't my question. My question was, did you pull in any place when you got to 34 Fairview?
Well, I had to pick my girlfriend up, so yes, I did.
You did. Okay. Was there any place other than the driveway to pull into when you got to 34 Fairview?
No.
So it had to be the driveway, right?
Must have been.
All right.
Wow.
When you pulled into the driveway, you
crazy
waited
is
a
this?
period of time for Caitlin, correct?
Yes.
And how long a period of time was that?
I don't remember.
Was it more than a half hour?
No.
Was it more than 10 minutes?
I don't remember.
It could have been more than 10 minutes.
Probably wasn't.
And when you say probably wasn't, that means it probably was less than 10 minutes, correct?
I don't remember the time.
During that time that you were waiting for Caitlin to come out of the house while you were in the driveway, there was nothing obstructing your view of the front lawn, correct?
Nope.
All right. And shifting gears for a second, this was on January 29th of 2022, correct?
Yes.
And ultimately, you did pick up Caitlin and take her back to Easton, correct?
Correct.
On January 29th, at any point that day or night, Trooper Michael Proctor never interviewed you, correct?
Correct.
Nor did he interview the next day or the day after that, correct?
Correct.
Or the month of February, correct?
Correct.
Or the entire year of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Or the entire year of 2023, correct?
Correct.
The first time any investigator of this case interviewed you was May 7th of 2024, correct?
When was that? I don't.
That was 1 week ago. That was last Tuesday.
Correct.
You were aware at the time you were being interviewed for the first time by any investigator, this case had already started.
Yes.
You were aware that this jury heard opening statements from both counsel on April 29th, which was over a week before May 7th, correct?
Yes.
So it wasn't until over a week after opening statements that somebody from the state police finally interviewed you, correct?
Nobody from the state police interviewed me.
Who was it that interviewed you?
Nobody interviewed me. I spoke to the DAs about coming in here. That was about it.
Okay, I thought you had just testified that on May 7th, that was the first time an investigator reached out for you.
Yes.
All right. And when I use the term interview, I don't mean that somebody put a bright spotlight on you and took you into an interrogation room. I'm just asking, did somebody ask you questions?
Yes.
Objection.
I'll let it stand.
Thank you, Ron. And that interview did not take place in person, correct?
No, it did not.
That was a phone interview, correct?
Correct.
And your attorney was on the line for that, correct?
Correct.
Now, from the beginning of the night on January 28th, your plan was to go home early, correct?
Correct.
You weren't drinking much, correct?
That is correct.
You had to get up early.
Yes.
Correct? And it actually was really early. It could have been as early as 3 a.m., correct?
Correct.
So from the beginning, you knew that you weren't going to get much sleep, correct?
Yes.
And if you were going to get any sleep, you couldn't stay at the waterfall all night, correct?
That is correct.
So you left early.
Yes.
And you planned to go home, get whatever rest or sleep you could get, and then wait for the call to go out plowing, correct?
That is correct.
The plan from the beginning was not for you to leave the waterfall, go to Easton, and then drive back from Easton to Canton to pick up Caitlin, and then take her back to Easton so that you could wait for the call for plowing. That was not the original plan, correct?
No, it wasn't.
No, of course it wasn't. So I apologize, Ron. I withdraw that comment. But the plan changed, correct?
Yes.
And that was because you heard from your girlfriend, Caitlin, correct?
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you a question and hope I get an answer. Do you recall what time it was that she contacted you?
No, I don't recall.
Did anybody instruct you not to talk about any times that anything happened?
Absolutely not.
How did Caitlin contact you that night?
Via text, via phone.
And you were in Easton when she did that, correct?
Yes.
She was at 34 Fairview?
Yes.
And by the way, the snowstorm was no surprise to you that night, right?
No.
I mean, that's why you were waiting to plow, correct?
Yes.
That snowstorm had been forecast.
Yes.
And it had started snowing by midnight, correct?
I don't remember when it started snowing.
But for some reason, Caitlin now needed to get picked up before you went plowing, correct?
Yes.
That meant, despite the fact that you had to get up potentially at 3 a.m., you now had to make the trip back and forth between Canton and Easton a second time, correct?
Yes.
And you considered it to be important enough that you agreed to pick up Caitlin, despite the change in plan, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, when you pulled into that driveway, you at least temporarily parked in the driveway waiting for her, correct?
Yes.
What other cars were in the driveway at that time?
I don't remember.
What side of the driveway did you park on?
I don't remember.
After you parked, you texted Caitlin to tell her that you were there, correct?
Yes.
And you previously testified that you don't remember how long it took for her to come out of the house, correct?
I don't remember.
And I started to ask you, and I'll just finish that line of questioning. At that point, the front lawn of the house was to your left, correct?
It would have been, yes.
Right. And there were no obstructions between you and the front lawn blocking your view, correct?
I wouldn't be staring at her grass, so no.
Okay. I didn't ask you where you were staring. I was just asking if there were any obstructions.
Okay, yeah.
And the answer to that question is?
No.
Was snow starting to accumulate at that time?
I don't remember.
You recall if there was any snow on the ground?
Yes, because I was driving cautiously.
And against that white snow, did you see a black baseball cap?
Absolutely not.
And as you sat in that driveway, you also did not see a black sneaker?
Absolutely not.
And you also did not see 45 pieces of red plastic?
No.
Or even one piece?
No.
And you certainly did not see a 6'2" man on the lawn of your girlfriend's parents' home, correct?
No, I did not.
You saw nothing unusual in that front area of the lawn, correct?
No, I did not.
Caitlin got into the Jeep.
Correct.
The plan was for you to drive the Jeep back to Easton with her, correct?
Yes.
You backed out of the driveway, correct? And you turned the rear end of that car toward Cedar Crest, correct?
Not towards Cedar Crest. I was going up the hill. So
Okay,
do you favor?
if I suggested to you that going up the hill would take you towards Chapman, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and the other end of the street was Cedar Crest, right?
Towards that way, yes.
Okay, so the rear end of your car was towards Cedar Crest and you were facing up the hill towards Chapman, right?
Yes.
All right. That would have meant that you were driving your vehicle past really the entire length of Brian Albert's front lawn, correct?
Yes.
And the front lawn would have been on Caitlin's side of the car, correct?
Yes.
And you drove past the flagpole that you're familiar with, correct?
Yes.
And as you drove past that entire front lawn, you never saw any of the things I previously asked you about, the baseball hat, the sneakers, the pieces of red plastic, or a 6'2" man, correct?
I did not.
You saw nothing out of the ordinary, correct?
Correct.
And you saw no tire tracks in the snow leading to the Albert's front lawn, did you?
I did not.
You didn't see anything that would lead you to conclude that there would have been a car crash there, correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So I'm going to stop it there. There's only one more question that is kind of interesting where he makes a comment about his girlfriend being high maintenance, Caitlin Albert. But I actually think that ends up being kind of diffuses the tension a little bit and takes everybody's attention away from Tristan. And I think that's a mistake. This guy knows something. I've never seen anybody this insignificant to an outcome of a case, this anxious and this unwilling to give any information at all related to time. That is so shady. It is so incriminating. And Caitlyn does a very similar thing where they both kind of try to explain it away by saying, well, I'm just bad with time. Like it's a character flaw. It's pretty shady. Thank you, Charlie, so much for your support. And you're right. That's right. So if anyone had ever used a Stairmaster at the gym, and I know I guess the question for me is this. I am absolutely sure that it registers stairs. I know it does. There's a lot of actually scientific data on this. There's scientific journals, articles on the accuracy of Apple phone data in terms of climbing stairs. My question is, would a fight or like being in an attack, would that register stairs? Could that register stairs? And the answer to me depends on how Apple Health is calculating information. Like what's it using for information? Susie Harris sends $2. Yeah, Susie, as soon as I saw this in the chat, I had this moment like, oh, that's so interesting. Could very well be. My question though is two things. I hear you. It was a little bit like a boxing shuffle. But then why wouldn't he register any sense of a threat at all? Like if he really understood that Higgins was physically threatening harm, number one, why wouldn't there be any sense of like distress or urgency? There's no anger on his face, like no aspect on his like response, aside from the little shuffle, which I agree, absolutely, you could say is a boxing shuffle. But why doesn't he register it as like a threat in any way? Why does it seem like he thinks it's almost playful? And then, I mean, unless Karen's just also very much withholding information, which is possible, of course, we would have to believe also that he either didn't communicate it to her or she didn't know about it at all, or she's lying about not knowing about it at all. And I would, like if I had Karen sitting here in front of me, I would ask her, there's a few questions, there's a few things I would absolutely want to know from her specifically. And that is, why in God's name would you ever let John OKeefe out of your sight in a place where you knew that Brian Higgins was? That would be my question. I have already know the answer. There's a lot of discussion in their text messages about how he's safe and how like he wouldn't out her, I guess, because there's a few interactions in those text messages where Karen's kind of, it seems like she may be trying to feel out whether or not he would ever like tell John. You know, I'm not sure. They're both kind of feeling, how much can we trust each other? So it's going on both ways. But he makes a point to say, like, I'm a safe person. You can trust me. You can tell me your deep, darkest whatevers, and I'm not going to run and talk to other people. I'm a private person. So he tries to make it like I'm that guy who doesn't just run his mouth. And so they have explicit discussions about it. Maybe that's why she doesn't seem to have thought twice about leaving John in a place where Brian Higgins was without her. I don't know. She really did not register that as a threat. And also it makes sense from the perspective that I don't know that Karen knew that either of these two men felt strongly for her. It seems like there's some low self-esteem happening in certain ways because of that. It's like she didn't think John cared about her, and she also completely underestimated how Higgins really felt. Because clearly Brian Higgins liked Karen Reid. I mean, I don't care what he says on the stand. I don't care what Yuri Buchanan's version of these texts, how he reads it. He can say whatever he wants. Reading Brian Higgins' words and evaluating his behavior, this man, he liked Karen, and he wasn't just looking to hook up with her, and he had plenty of opportunities to do that. Like he really did. She was right in front of him at his house. She drove all the way to his house. If you are a female and you're in this situation, put yourself in this situation, why would you do that? What are you going to this man's house for at whatever time at night to have drinks? What are you thinking is going to go down? At one point, Karen even says, I'm an adult. I'm a woman. I'm whatever age she is. I know what it means to have a drink. Like, what do you think she thinks she's going there for? Higgins doesn't make a move. He doesn't make a move because he doesn't want, he doesn't want to be having an affair with her behind John O'Keefe's back. But he likes her. He definitely likes her. There's no doubt. That's why it's so incriminating the next day when he doesn't respond. When she says John is dead. It's horrible text. The whole thing is horrible. But she sends that text and he never responds ever again. And that is so incriminating. If you really think about this, okay? If he has nothing to do at all with this, if they are just not culpable, why wouldn't he respond to that text? Because he thinks Karen Read is like a sociopath serial killer, the same woman who a few hours earlier he was ready to fight for? Just a few hours before. Like it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. This is what I mean about consciousness of guilt evidence. There is so much consciousness of guilt. There's just so much consciousness of guilt. These guys are as guilty as they're just so guilty. It's nuts. Z McCarthy sends 499 and says, Sam, do you really think that McAlbs would cover for Higgins? I don't know. I think, not without also having some level of involvement. Yeah, I don't think they would risk so much if Higgins by himself was the only person involved. But we know that Chloe was involved. I mean, we know that for sure, right? That does make him somewhat culpable, for sure. The other thing is Colin is a factor. Like if you evaluate Colin's testimony, he was there when this happens. The question is like exactly what level of culpability, exactly what was he doing, exactly how involved. So I think he was there. But the other thing that I'm just starting to there's one more piece of this that I'm really starting to understand now more than I have ever have before. And that is you have to also, I'm trying to think about the best way to say this. You have to also think about the culture of this group of people. Like think about the Devers testimony and how, I hate the term blue wall, but in Boston, there's such a hidden undercurrent. There's such a we stick together. There's this whole undercurrent of we're gonna stick together no matter what. I would take a bullet for you, kind of a thing. And there's something that somebody else said. It was an FBI agent, might have been Sergio Gennaro. Somebody said this, and maybe it was Sergio Gennaro talking about the blue wall, who said something like, you got to understand that the Boston police, they are there. There's nobody overseeing them. These guys can do whatever they want to do. Right? There's no higher authority than for a Boston police officer. There's no higher authority than the Boston commissioner, the police commissioner of the Boston Police Department. There is nobody else, right? Nobody else is watching them, monitoring them. They can do whatever they want. When you put it that way, it's maybe these guys, it's just this is their own system of justice, right? Why would their instinct maybe not to involve law enforcement as law enforcement, right? Their instinct maybe just to keep it in house. Let's do this ourselves. That's another factor. I'm having a hard time really trying to put my finger on what that is without saying blue wall, which is so cliche. But I do think that you have to evaluate the cultural piece of this group, because I think that also would be a factor here. And alcohol. I mean, they're all drunk, like really drunk. And if you're drunk and panicked and freaking another cop by accident just dies in front of you, that would be pretty traumatizing. I'm pretty sure that, a dog is chewing on them. I mean, it's a horror show. It's a horror show. And I don't think that any of these guys were cold-hearted killers. I really don't. But, Susie, to your point about the boxing shuffle, I think it's a great question. I really do. And I would love to speak to Karen Reed about it. That's the person that you could get information. She's the only one that would know, really know whether there was conscious awareness on John O'Keefe's part of a fight being about to occur. Obviously, though, that wouldn't be the case, right? Because then Karen would have immediately known to look to the people in the house for John's death. And she didn't. I mean, it's really true that Yannetti comes out on the courtroom, on the stairs the next day and says, this was obviously not intentional, right? She hired a DUI attorney, and Yannetti makes a very public statement 24 hours later, and does say, there was no intent here, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. We don't know what happened. But the implication from Karen's view right away was that it was her fault. I mean, she definitely didn't remember what happened. And it does appear that she thought maybe it was me. She really didn't know. And then it wasn't until Steve Scanlon showed up or went to Yannetti and said, no, you got to look at the people in the house. I mean, that's the story. And to me, that matches the behavior. Now, I obviously can't say definitively if that's exactly what happened, but that does appear to be what happened. And it matches certainly Karen Reed's behavior 100% and Yannetti's behavior too, 100%. The Breeze sends $5 and says, do you think that Karen Reed's instincts kicked in, felt uncomfortable going inside after having? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yes. Yeah, I think she was right. I mean, Karen Reed definitely had instincts about Brian Albert. 100%. Yep. Yes. Yeah, I mean, she knew to stay away from him, and she did. I mean, they did not have any interactions, not really. Not just at the waterfall that night, but they would have been in and around each other socially. They both hung out at the hillside. They both hung out at the waterfall. I'm sure she had seen them. She obviously knew Brian Albert. They knew Chris. They had socialized with Chris and Julie. They used to house sit. Chris and Julie used to house sit for them, that's where that whole OCD on the lawn stuff started, right? Because they were neighbors and would house sit for John, which was actually funny and cute. Chris is incredibly remorseful. If you watch his testimony, he's very, very, very remorseful. He cared for John. He obviously did not want to see anything like this happen to him. So yes, I do think that her instincts kicked in. I don't know though that yes, I think her instincts kicked. Yes. Yeah, she definitely didn't feel comfortable. I mean, would you have felt comfortable? Think about it. Just the little that you know about Brian Albert. If you didn't feel like anybody had invited you, if you knew that Brian Albert's is the house that you were talking about going to the after party at, and he didn't invite you directly, and would you want to go to Brian Albert's house? Just show up? I don't know. There's no way I would go either. Absolutely not. No. He's definitely a shady guy. At least that's the way he comes off. Now, I'm sure if you know him and you're comfortable with him, he does also seem like he may be funny and, interesting to I don't know, a guy's guy. I don't know. Have some redeeming qualities perhaps, but he's a pretty scary guy. And it seems like that's the reputation he wants, right? That's what he wants you to think. I mean, you don't get I am a dog person. I've had dogs my whole life. My first dog, I got a dog when I moved to Montana and I got a dog when I was 20. It's just, don't even ask. Anyway, so I've always had dogs. I'm not going to get a German Shepherd unless I want to intimidate. The goal with a dog like that, a power breed, I guess, right, is to what? Is to intimidate, right? Why do you do that? Why would you get a German? You do that because you want people to be intimidated. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, people are going to be intimidated by a German Shepherd. You know, that dog's instinct is going to be to bite, to bark, to protect, you know, and you know, yeah, okay, maybe I'm going to have to teach it correctly. And I could see Brian Albert knowing how to train instinctively a dog and a scary dog. But he would also be very, very clear that it would be a scary dog to other people. So to me, this is a guy who was very deliberate about, you know, trying to seem like he was, you know, big and scary, trying to scare people 100%. Yeah. These guys, you know, he's a scary guy. He's a little scary. Ryan Albert's a little scary. There is definitely something a little scary about him, 100%. Susie Harris says $10, sends $10 and says John and Karen argued. Okay, because John was on a mission to find out what Higgins' problem was at the bar. Albert had Higgins amped up to confront John, erupted immediately between the two. Okay, let's see this again. John and Karen argued because John was on a mission to find out what Higgins' problem was at the bar. Maybe. I mean, I definitely believe that there was a fight between Higgins and John. Now, remember, John would have had in the back of his head somewhere that Karen absconds. Remember, like, she skirts around. She walks him away from the camera, the Ring camera at John's house at One Meadows 2 weeks earlier, and skirts around the camera to walk him outside. And John sees that much and he says, whoa, what are you guys hooking up? He says that. She tells Higgins that. He's like, what the fuck, Karen? Higgins kind of panics for a second. And then she's like, oh no, you know, don't worry. There's no camera footage of it. So he would have had that in the back of his mind. But Karen doesn't go near Higgins throughout the entire night. Doesn't go near him. Not at all. Doesn't even like look in his direction. You know, so she's like off in the corner, right, with Jen and with him pretty much most of the night. So we'd have to speak to her to know whether or not she saw or heard anything from John about Higgins. Because that's the other thing. If they were fighting, first off, I'm not sure that they were actually fighting. I've heard Karen say that she had told somebody on the scene they were fighting. Impossible for us to be able to discern what she meant by that. Because for Karen Reed, she was fighting with John. Absolutely. She called him 58 times and was screaming and yelling and you fucking pervert, you know, the whole thing, right? She was out of her mind. Hard to really assess accurately anything that was going on factually from her word of mouth at the time. So I just know from their fights earlier that day and before that the kind of people that they are, if they were really arguing, there's no way Karen lets him out of the car that easily. And you know, really it was minutes. So there wasn't enough time. She's just so much of an anxious attachment. She would have done anything to keep him there longer and probably would have succeeded for like maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes, keeping him longer if they were actually actively in some kind of an argument before he gets out. So to me, and he would have stayed for a little while. He would have, you know, he would have eventually got tired of it and left anyway, but it wouldn't have been right away. And we see that same pattern with the two of them over and over again. So I just don't think there was enough time. That's the weird thing about this whole thing too, right? I mean, look at the timeline. Like this all happens in what, like 12 minutes? Somebody was saying to me that they suspected the timeline was much longer. Like somebody was trying to say that John was there hanging out for a few hours. But the reason why unless somebody literally was kidnapping him and like took his phone, there's no way, because even when they were like heated battle, like heat of the moment battle, John did not completely ignore Karen. He would at least say, not now, you know, not right now. We'll talk about this later. Like, and he would say that many, many times in a text message. I can't talk right now. I'll call you back in 20 minutes. Like he would try to appease her. He would not just not respond at all, particularly if she kept calling. Remember the texts that were like, stop calling. So he would respond. And the fact that he just disappears completely, something happened very quickly to him, or somebody stole the phone. I mean, it would have to be one or the other. And to me, he was gone quick. That's the reason why I think he was gone quickly. Okay, a couple more here, and then we're gonna go. Let's see. What does this say? Whoa, sorry, you just left. Nope, that was you, Susie. Legal Onlooker sends $4.99, says, did you notice his answer to, did anyone ask you not to talk about times? Of course. Yes. Oh, Brian Albert. Oh, this isn't even 100. Anytime there's any direction by anyone to anyone in this family, it's Brian Albert. Like, this guy is the patriarch. 100%. Notice that, like, in that ABC interview, he's right in the middle. It has always been very, very clear to me who Brian Albert is. I don't know why. Once I heard he's the oldest of 7, 1 sister. Okay. The house that he was living in at 34 Fairview is his parents' house. So that's another piece of information that's like super important, right? He is not only a Boston police officer, but he was on Boston's Finest, right? He was a bounty hunter. So he likes that, like, not just the like hard and fast kind of, he likes the allure, like he likes that other people see him as that. He wants to be known as like the tough guy, the guy to be feared. You don't put yourself on Boston's Finest talking about how you're a bounty hunter who boxes unless you want everyone to be scared of you, right? Like, so everything that he exudes, he has a German Shepherd who, like, notoriously terrifying breed of dog who are inherently bred for hundreds of years to defend their home. This guy, there's nothing that happened at that house. This man, that's his parents' house. That's not even just his house. That's his parents' house. Nothing that happened at this house, this man did not know about. And nothing that happens in this family, in this sense, that he wouldn't be aware of and trying to control. Everything Jen McCabe does is because of him. Everything she says is because of him. Everything she did. Think about it. Who did she call? So the feds show up at her house. They show up. She drops the kids off at school. Feds are there at her door. She lies and says that she's her sister. Fine. They then call her. She then tries to say, oh, no, I thought you guys were salespeople. I need 10 minutes. I have to brush my teeth. In those 10 minutes, she calls Carrie Roberts. She calls her husband, Matt, Brian Albert, Peg O'Keefe, and the DA, the Commonwealth, the DA's office, right? Steve, the advocate, the witness advocate. So like the conduit for the DA's office. So, and that's pretty much the deal, right? She calls Peg and Carrie to see if they'd been there first. And she calls Brian Albert to figure out, what the hell do I tell them? What do I do? And that's what she does the whole time. She calls Brian Albert all the time. In fact, go back and look at her call records. This is freaky. I mean, these people are just so crazy. Look at her call records because they're really easy to find. You can Google them in 2 seconds. And you'll see that either before or just after every call to Carrie Roberts is a call to Brian Albert. Like, she is intentionally trying to manipulate Carrie the whole time. It's crazy. It's so much so that Carrie does end up lying to the feds and then has to walk it back because she does lie about the Google search. She does tell them that Google search, that she was there and she heard Karen ask her to Google House Long to Die in the Cold. And then she has to tell them, no, that's not true. I didn't actually hear it. So, Brian Albert all the way. 100%. 100%. Yeah. It's not even close. Golden Fire sends $5 and says, this just occurred to me. Who would Chloe protect? Higgins or Albert, Brian, or Colin? Well, so it depends on the situation. She would protect Brian first. Daddy would be God for Chloe. That's not even question. She slept at his bed, on his side of the bed, right by his bed. or like in his closet, right? So this dog was his dog. But we do know that she would get out of that gate. She was aggressive. We know she was aggressive. They said that she only bit like one or two people by accident because they were trying to break up a dog fight. But there's other documented evidence of that dog biting other people. I believe there's 4. I believe I'd have to double check that. So that, but the stranger would be John OKeefe, right? I mean, she would have probably, Brian Higgins had been there before, but my guess is that the complete stranger would have been John. Somebody was also suggesting that maybe John was like peeing, like wandered off to just pee really quick, and that the dog would have jumped the fence and got to him. The problem with that is John had vomit on him and bruises all over his hands and, little marks on his face, on the side of his head, so it couldn't have just been a dog and a fall. It had to have been, fighting injuries also. But it's a great question. I mean, yeah. Also, there's a little mark. If you look at like how a German Shepherd might jump up on a person to grab, he also had like a little scratch, I think, like right above his knee. That struck me as a possible mark from the dog, like the feet, the dog paws on the back, the bottom from jumping up, right? Could have got him that way, could have scratched him. So definitely, obviously, the dog attacked him. Beyond that, I think you would have had to have been an Albert for Chloe to be comfortable enough to like go home with someone. I don't think that Colin Albert could have taken that dog with him. I think that would have probably had to have been Caitlin because the dog was shady. And Brian Albert couldn't leave the premises, right? He was there that morning, but there wasn't a dog on premises. There's no dog at that house. There's no German Shepherd at 34 Fairview that morning. No, there's no dog. There's no way. We would have heard that dog for blocks, no matter how windy it is outside, like the defenders of the Commonwealth like to say. So, but yeah, listen, we've got nothing but time now, right? That's kind of the upside to the trial having concluded, in addition, of course, to Karen Read being acquitted, is we can go back through all of this and try to figure it out. And there's so much more information here. Like, this is kind of what I wanted to do all along, but just didn't have the time to do because once the trial started, it was like, forget it. Now we just have constant information coming at us. But like people on the chat tonight have pointed out, right? Like, oh my God, you guys, how much information just from like Buchanan's testimony. There's so much there. And, you know, you the first time we watch it all, it's like there's so much information. You're just picking out stuff, you know, you miss a lot and got to go back and like, you know, like somebody suggested I do go back and look for what he says about the Jeep, about Brian Higgins's Jeep, because there is something going on with the Jeep. There's no question that Jeep was not parked where Brian Higgins says it was, because the Nagel, you know, the F-150, the Ford that pulls up, you know, behind Karen Read at the same time as Karen pulls up to the house to let John out of the car, there's no Jeep there. So, and Brian Higgins is there. We obviously all know that, right? So where is he parked? That's the question. And it's an important question because it will help us also figure out where the hell did John go. The other thing that we got to figure out, and I have to make a note of this, I'm going to investigate Apple Health to find out, could a fight look like stairs? Could a fight confuse Apple Health to think that somebody maybe climbed stairs? So that is going to be my next, like, you know, research mission, in addition to the normal stuff that I will do. So you guys, it has been so much fun. I cannot thank you enough for your support. It is so awesome to be able to just sit here and talk to y'all. And I thank you so much for being here with me, for, you know, for hanging out, for your support. Can't wait to do it again. Most of the time, I'm trying to make it 10 p.m. on Wednesdays. And I think that's going to be the time going forward. But I like Fridays. I do. I like Fridays is is fun for me because I don't care. You know, I'm not 22 years old. I don't need to go out drinking at a bar. So who cares if we're up talking, right? Harder to do on a Wednesday night, I will admit. So, but we'll see. Next week, it'll be Wednesday night. And that I know for sure. So hopefully I will see you guys there Wednesday at 10 p.m. Don't forget to push the like button. And I will see you next week. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a beautiful night, early morning. And you'll hear from me again very soon. I've got all these videos I'm finishing up, so they'll probably hit very, very soon. Good night, everybody. Have a beautiful night.